August 2nd. And I'll start with public comment. Is there any member of the public wishing to comment on an item that's not in the agenda? Seeing nobody, I'll close public comment and return it back to the board for item B, which is approval of the minutes for the Single Family Design Board for July 19th. Do I have a motion?
Motion that they be approved.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
All right. Are there any comments about the minutes? Just go through. Item 1, Item 2, Item 3, Item 4, Item 5, Item 6, Item 7. I had one comment on Item 7. Item 7 is 3626 San Remo Drive. And it is under the motion, Item 2, it says review of the historical aspect of the trees along the north property line is requested. Could we put of the orange trees or non-native orange trees along the north property line? Okay.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
item number 4,
Okay.
819 Roberto Avenue. I was just trying to follow the consistency in the motion. So, because number 1, the project bulk, mass, and scale are compatible. And then number 2, study further reducing the massing of the south elevation. I wonder if the maker of the motion would consider having that state reduce the mass and take out the study. Because I think that's where we were in agreement on that project.
I heard you fine.
Yeah, was it on? Okay, the light's not on.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Glenn.
As the maker of that motion, Bernie actually opposed the motion, so that's fine. I'm still comfortable with the language.
Okay. I would say that some of us will remember this project and the front entry was a little bit on the clunky side, which is why we want them to massage it back. But as the maker of the motion, if he's not okay with going that direction, keeping the word study, we just have to be diligent in remembering what our opposition was when it comes back to us.
All right, well, Glenn, what do you have to say about that? Is that
He doesn't want to change them.
Do you just want to keep it like this? And
Yeah, that's what I said already.
Yeah, he wants to keep it the way it is. Okay, but thank you for making that comment because that is a good
Can we
point.
jump in real quick with a roll call?
Very
for the
true.
record?
I forgot that part.
Good.
Can we have a... Yeah.
Bernstein,
Here.
Harold,
Here.
Geisler,
Here.
Miller,
Here.
Woolery,
Absent or late?
Zimmerman,
Absent or late?
and Zink.
Here. Cool.
Thanks.
Return back to the minutes for July 19th Single Family Design Review Board. We were on item 7, bopped back down to 4. Item 8. Any other comments? Then the motion is to amend the minutes as discussed. Any other discussion? If not, I'll call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Let's move on to the consent calendar for July 26th.
Okay, our consent calendar last week, July 26th, we have item A, 331 Sherman Road, got preliminary approval as submitted. Item B, 525 Conejo Road, got a final approval of the architecture as submitted, and final approval of the landscaping with conditions. Item C, 407 Conejo Road, was postponed 1 week. Item D, 1545 Manitou Road, got final approval as submitted. Item E, 1466 La Cima Road, got a final approval with a condition. And consent last week was reviewed by Glenn Eisler and Denise Woolery.
Okay, do we have a motion to approve the consent calendar minutes? First by Aaron,
I'll second.
second by Bernie. Any other discussion? Call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, consent calendar for today, August 2nd. We had item A, 407 Conejo Road. A review after final was approved as submitted. Item B, 230 Santa Cruz Boulevard, got a final approval as submitted. Item C, 1628 Overlook Lane, got a final approval with conditions. Item D, 1036 Arbolado Road, got a final approval as submitted. Item E, 1411 Hesesita Lane, got final approval with conditions. And consent today was reviewed by Paul Zink and Denise Woolery.
Okay. A call for a motion to approve the minutes.
Make a motion to approve the minutes.
First by Mr. Miller, second by
Second.
by Aaron. Any other discussion? If not, a call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Good. We're on to item D, which is announcements and requests by applicants.
We had a project at 2501 Medcliff as a subdivision, and that'll be going to the Planning Commission on August 19th. So we're wondering if someone could attend that Planning Commission meeting to represent the SFDB.
I can make that. I can make that meeting.
Okay.
Do you need more than one person? Okay. Then I'll be that. Medcliff.
Okay, that's all I have for announcements.
Okay. Under subcommittee reports, I have one item or under announcements, either one, is 2222 Santa Barbara Street. If we can have Mr. Lamone kind of brief us on the status of that project. And I believe that was the project that came to us as a minor addition in the back of the property, and subsequently the house was leveled, and now it's being rebuilt, and it's in the Mission Special Design District. And I just want to make sure that the project doesn't continue too far without having proper aesthetic review of the details for the part that was being demolished and rebuilt,
Okay,
if that's within our purview.
sure. We'll look
Okay.
at that.
Is there any other subcommittee or announcements?
All right, Mr. Chair. Thank you. I'd like to talk, am I on? Mr. Light's not on.
Just switch.
I just was asked to review the project that's in front of Washington School as you go on Meigs Road, as you go down Meigs toward the ocean, and then it turns into Shoreline. Everybody knows where that is because I don't remember the exact address. Do you know what it
The
is?
project address was 230 Lighthouse.
Okay, 230 Lighthouse. And this involves eucalyptus trees, and so I was emailing Allison D. Busk, who's the project planner for that, and got an email back from her, and I was a little bit surprised to find out that almost all the trees are proposed to be taken out, and then it's going to come back to the SFDB with the landscape plan for our approval. So I was wondering if we could get her to come in here and maybe go through it a little bit more carefully, you know, if that's already a done deal or if there's some things that people need to look at, because it's sort of a canopy entrance from Shoreline as you turn into Meigs, and there's both sides with the park on one side and the eucalyptus grove, and it's pretty clear that nobody's maintaining the eucalyptus trees right now, but they're healthy and they're very, very tall, and if they start with brand new little small trees, it's really going to have an impact on the whole area. So I think that we would like to hear from her and maybe even take a look at what they're trying to substitute and see if that still makes sense.
Can I ask staff a question? On this project, it came in front of the board and we had comments, and those comments went on to, was it the Planning Commission?
Yeah.
Okay, so has the Planning Commission already approved the project and the removal of those trees and all that kind of stuff? Has that step been accomplished?
I don't know. I don't think so.
Okay.
Do you? I don't remember either if they were proposing to replace all those trees when it came to you.
I remember the comments that were made about that project, but I didn't know if it's already been to the next level and it's already been blessed and stuff.
Not yet.
So how about we just have you and staff find out where the project is in the process, because if the project does not receive Planning Commission approval yet, then our board has an opportunity to go to the Planning Commission and speak something, as well as our minutes should reflect some of our concerns of the majority of the board.
Well, we should see if they were proposing to replace all those trees when you saw it, and if not, then maybe we should bring them back for your comments on that. But I'll talk to the case planner and see
Okay.
what's happening.
So staff will look into it and get back to you or to all of us in 2 weeks.
Okay.
Okay, so if there's a significant deviation from the plan since we reviewed it, we'll
Right.
see it again before it goes to Planning Commission?
Yep.
Okay. Thank you. Anything else? If not, we're on to item 1, which is 376 Los Alturas Road. It's a project that's wanting final review, so I won't read the project description. We've seen it before, and it's received preliminary. And wait one
Just on a
sec.
fresh set, there's just, there's no changes compared to this one other than just... a little
Well, let's
bit more
work off of
detail.
these, I think. Is for final, we have to go off of these, or is it just for preliminary?
Well, I think they brought in additional information.
We had a week to continue with details, so this one's a little bit more complete.
Why don't you put it down here underneath it? Or, okay. We'll have the minutes read, and then we'll have your name and presentation.
So, Mr. Chair, the minutes from the previous meeting are study reducing the amount of metal siding and using lighter metal siding color. Number 2, locate the drainage pipes below grade. Number 3, the cistern shall be below grade or concealed within the structure. Number 4, identify the riprap to be Santa Barbara sandstone. Number 5, retaining the sycamores is acceptable. And number 6, the project is compatible with the neighborhood, provides quality materials, proposed landscape is appropriate for the site.
Great. Let's have your name for the record.
My name is Kate Svensson, work for Sharing Associates.
Okay.
This is Mike Garrison, civil engineer, and Philip Castillo is landscape architect.
Great. How do you want to do your presentation? Do you want to just go through these items, or do you want to talk about some other things?
Yeah, we can start with the minutes. But in general, the design stayed the same. We continued working within the same architectural design and worked on refining some details and construction documents.
Okay.
In regards to the minutes from the last meeting, we did study the amount of metal siding and the colors as well. We actually switched to a lighter color compared to the color represented in the last meeting.
Do you have that sample
we
or a
do.
color board?
This is the new proposed color, and it's a little bit lighter than the one we had at the last meeting. So it's a little bit more neutral and
Okay.
slightly lighter.
Okay. And does it come in? Is this kind of what they call a matte finish?
Yes, and it also, with weathering, it gets a little bit more, it gets less shiny
Okay.
as it gets exposed to the sun. And
And was the amount of metal surface area reduced to, or just the color was changed?
just the color. We did look into other options, but it seems like this is the way it's going to work out. And for now, it seems to be a good balance between concrete and siding, and
Okay.
it's kind of an equilibrium right now. So,
Fine. Take that. Oops. Anybody else want to see this request? Pass that. Okay.
Here's the reference one.
Let's go to the drainage plan or the landscape plan. Talk about the next issue.
Drainage would be there.
Those are actually back in this direction. So as far as the remarks from the minutes, we have taken both the existing pipe that was on the surface as well as all proposed pipes are now below grade for your request.
Okay.
In addition, everything is now, sorry, we're looking at the erosion control plan. It's a very similar looking document. This is what we need to be seeing though. Sorry, is it? I haven't seen how this set was assembled, so forgive me.
Here.
There we go. That's
Okay.
looking like
That's the
damn.
same one.
It's
Yeah.
right there, grading and drainage plan. So, in any event, getting the pipes below grade, everything is now called out of Santa Barbara sandstone for the riprap, and the cistern is now placed in the mechanical room on the bottom level. So, I think we've identified.
So this is a hard bottom cistern. It's
Yeah.
not like one with the open perk down.
No, this is
Okay.
actually a poly container that's actually spec'd in the detail.
I'll trust you.
Something to wrap in the face there, but in any event, it's
Okay.
just a tank, a plumbed tank.
Okay. That took care of that. And the riprap comment and the trees. I think that's all the trees were fine. We just made some positive
Yeah.
comment about saving that one sycamore.
Right.
Yep.
Santa Barbara Stone also shows up in the planting plan also.
It's last sheets. Yeah.
That's the demo plan. Seating area.
It should be here.
Dry stream bed, national. Import Santa Barbara sand shell, boulders, and cobbles as necessary. Okay. I think that's a good presentation. Anything else you want to go over?
No, unless you want to go over the details. In
Why don't you walk us through the
Okay.
detail sheets?
it's 5. Yeah. So I guess
Exterior light fixture, they're down.
and those are typical details, but I guess the ones that the board would want to see would be the siding details. So we addressed all of the location connections with siding and concrete, and as well as the siding doors and windows with double stud walls and siding and concrete walls. And so we concentrate on resolving all the waterproofing issues and with exposed concrete walls and sliding doors.
Okay.
This is the overhangs that we show in the front of the residence, the pre-manufactured overhangs. And that's about it.
Okay, where does this happen on elevation again?
All of the overhangs are all of them are really going to be done in a similar style. Some of them are going to be fixed and closed at a different angle, but the ones that are on both sides of the fireplace in the second level, they're going to be fixed at 45-degree openings. And the front entry has a completely closed overhang.
Okay.
So basically you can rotate those little pieces in different angles and
Yeah, I
control.
follow.
Yeah.
Great. Alrighty, well thank you. Let me open up public comment. Is there anyone from the public wishing to speak on this project? Seeing nobody, I'll return it to staff.
We received a letter in opposition from Paula Westbury.
Okay. So go back to the board for questions of the applicant. And if there's no questions, we can just go straight to comments since we've seen this before.
System connected to the cistern, or is that being used for something else?
No, we have not connected it to the cistern at this point in time. We plan to.
So what is it being used for? The water from the cistern?
The purpose of the cistern is actually just to choke our post-development runoff back to pre-development levels. It's a SWEMP BMP, essentially.
But the possibility exists that you could pump it up and
Certainly
use
you
it for...
could. It's just with local rainfall patterns, as we know, there's a very good chance what you'll get is one tank full a year of useful irrigation water. So whether it's really worth the whole thing to irrigate it
Yeah.
and pump it back up the hill, I leave that to the board and the owner.
Okay. Anybody else with questions or comments? If not, I'll entertain a motion. And this motion would be for final approval.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion for final approval for the architecture. Did we look at the landscape? We're okay with that? Architecture landscape as submitted.
Okay, is there a second for that motion?
Second.
Second by Denise. Any other discussion? If not, I'll call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you very
It's
much.
a great project. So if you don't mind, we're going to save this one, and the other ones you can take with you. Recycle those.
Is that indicating what was turned around?
No. That's why it was here in front of us, and that's why there also was a dotted line of where the house was that was lost.
Typically, you don't see anything here.
That was capacity.
We'll talk about that later.
Okay.
Yeah, no, we discussed that. We are going to be on item 2, which is 1517 Cliff Drive. And we have minutes for this.
Good afternoon.
Do you want me to read the minutes?
Why don't you to read the minutes? Yeah.
Okay. Minutes from the previous meeting were, number 1, to reduce the building height by 12 inches. Number 2, study the design of the shed roof. And number 3, provide a material and color board. Thank you.
25 feet.
Okay.
23 feet. I missed that. Oh, yeah.
24. Oh, yeah.
Well, when you're ready, name for the record.
Okay,
And
Tom Oxner, project architect, and this is Mark Griffith.
Okay.
And let's see, I can go right down the items. Let's see, I've got the hand sketches have been brought up to CAD. I've refined some of the grading and the drainage is on the site plan. I'll get to that when we get to a larger site plan. I think we can start with the elevations. Let's see, we've got our 23 feet height. We developed the covered patio to the south with a flat roof that mimics the existing on the existing residence. It's a heavy timber built-up roofing, 1/4 and 12 pitch. What we've done is we've reapportioned the interior ceilings to accommodate Mark's particular needs, but kept the same volume that we had, the 23 feet above grade. Eliminated a window here. Let's see, I can switch over to the other elevations.
somewhere?
Yes, we eliminated a window here. We added a window up against the house to match the window that was to the south opposite it. Let's see. As far as the colors go, really we're just matching what we've got in the house. So what we've done is we've picked the palette to be, and do we have the photos in the job file?
Do I?
Photos of the existing residence.
Just gonna paint,
Well, this might have to do right
light
here.
beige. There you
Basically, there's a brown trim on the house, and we're looking to bring that up with the garage doors, the gates, and this is that gate right up here. So we carry that through. The windows and doors would be white, just like they are on the existing residence. The roof material would match the existing two-piece. Is that a two-piece tile? That's an S tile.
That's an S tile.
That's an S tile. Can we match the S tile? That's what we're looking to do.
So you don't really have a color board or the color materials?
Well,
off
we'll
this?
do that for fun. I just thought because it's an existing and we're matching. I thought the photos might do better than me trying to mimic what was out there.
Right. And the whites.
Okay.
Get it even clean.
Let's see. What are there other issues? I'm just thinking. I think that's it.
Okay, great. I'll open up public comment. Is there anyone from the public wishing to speak? Seeing nobody, but I always have to ask that question.
Yeah, I really think it's a great idea.
I'll return it back to staff for questions of the applicant.
We
Or,
do have a public comment letter in opposition from Paula Westbury. Paula Westbury. You can have the copy of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen those. I've had, I think, 3.
Okay. I'll return it back to the board for questions of the applicant. And can we see the drawings that were here 2 weeks ago? Just to review the elevations. You may speak, yeah, that's fine.
Question. I have a question regarding the plate height of this accessory space. Looks like it went up, or did you lessen the slope of the roof? Or?
Oh well.
I don't understand.
We held the height and the existing grade. We in looking at the site topography, we were able to. Let's go to the site plan. We were able to drop the concrete slab within the garage and still make a positive slope out in front. So the height of the building stayed the same, the 23 feet from the grade. So there's. But what we did was we took the slab inside and dropped it a bit, and then that allowed to capture some of the volume that Mark was looking for. So go to the site plan, we can see. The relationship of this structure relative to the existing residence is, it's been dropped to the 12 inches. As I think here we can go to the site plan. But we were looking at the site and coming up with our drainage scheme, and it looks like what we did was this was 89 and this was 88, and we were able to still get our fall from it comes down and then it comes up slightly. So it's a little lower than would have been a real easy scenario, but I think the advantages of doing this way also provides us with the ability to capture the water on the driveway and put it through a dispersion field. So I think that works well with the ability to sort of set the slab within the top of curb. The top of curb height stayed where it was in the garage. It was the slab within. Yeah.
Mr. Chair?
Denise.
My understanding then that you've dropped this height then by 12 inches,
Yes.
effectively.
Yes, we
Yeah,
did.
I was going to comment that the proportion looks much better to the main residence now, I think.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair?
Bernie.
So when you're out on Cliff Drive and you're looking down the driveway, can you show us what part of this we're going to be coming right on straight to?
I can't really see it, actually, because it's set back.
Well, I know where it is, but if you're on the driveway, on Cliff Drive, and you're
Okay.
looking down, so what are we going to see? And which part of this?
It's actually back over here, because it's set back 7 feet from my existing house. So you're really not going to see.
Here you go. This is looking at the property from Cliff Drive. So there would be nothing visible. That's the apron to the. And there's looking back up. Yes.
So where the RV is, that's going to stay there, or?
That's a flag lot, and that's actually my neighbor's house.
Oh.
That's
okay.
beyond the property.
And I hope it doesn't. But,
Because the fence, when I looked at it, I guess the fence was open, and that's what threw me off, or something. Okay.
So if I can ask a question, I'm still baffled by these numbers. And it's just the simple of why this was 9.5 feet, and over here it says 8.5 feet. So that tells me the building grew by a foot. I can see right here where this number was 8.5 and this was 9.5. So you took a foot out of the garage, you lowered the building by a foot. But then you took that foot that you sliced out of here and you actually reinserted it back into this point.
But we dropped the interior floor, so the dimension that you're seeing is actually from the slab. So basically, this point held where it was. That we dropped the 12 inches and that stayed where it was. And then in looking at the drainage and the site topography, we were able to drop the slab of the garage and then reapportion the space that we have. There's still 23 feet. There's 23 feet from the grade, from that grade, which was always been on this plan, the adjacent grade at the point of the two-story mass. And that's where we're taking. So if we look at the site plan, what's been a constant has been, this is the two-story mass. That point right there, that grade has been what we've been using to determine the height of our building. And so what we did was we took the ridge, we dropped it 12 inches, and then these slabs were dropped also. Those interior slabs went down 12 inches. And then we just reapportioned where do we want the floor level? And that was up to Mark. He took the plans home and said, I'd rather have this height here. Basically what he did was, rather than having a two-car lift in the double-car garage, he's going to use just a single lift in the higher single-car garage. It has a higher ceiling. So he gave up some desire for height in that double-car garage and put it back in the second story.
Okay. Any other questions from anybody else?
Yeah,
Mr. Miller.
he brought up a valid question regarding the S-tile. Is there a policy, or do we match the S-tile if it's existing?
Well, the new kids on the block can always ask the challenging questions that we've learned to ignore. Typically, we like to see the two-piece tile because it's traditionally what's seen in town, because there's already an existing house with the S-tile. I believe it would be customary to match the existing. Sometimes we ask them to put the double booster tile on with the S-tile solution so it looks a little bit nicer than just regular S-tile, but now everyone will know that they'll never match. Does any board member have a direction, comment?
I have another question. Do you know when the existing house was tiled? The original, was it recently retiled or something, or do you
No.
know? It's been that way for a long time.
Long time.
Okay.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Well, I think that in this case, I think that we need to match existing. I think it'll look really funny if they don't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All righty.
Mr. Chair, I have a question.
Question, then we'll go into comments.
Are you replacing the driveway at all?
We're
all-
holding the existing grades on the driveway, but we may resurface it. But from the edge of the easement, it's being contoured for the garage. So we're able to hold the existing grade of the driveway, and then 10 feet from that edge, we're creating our apron, which comes
Right.
down and then back up.
Is that area between the two garages, is that planted, or is that a sloped concrete?
It was sloped concrete, and there may be an opportunity for a planting project there.
Okay. So any comments from board members?
Chair. I'm still trying to understand the height issues and the differences between the previous drawings and these drawings. And I'm wrestling with that because I know that the building lowered but the exposure of the building actually didn't change.
Hey, time out. We're going to comment.
And then 23, 24. And then I'm just looking at this drawing here, which gives you a 24-foot dimension off of the lower grade. Right? And now it's 23, which is fine. So I understand the building went down, but then I go back to the section, and this is 23 when the grade is higher. Somehow. It's actually higher than the 188, which is here. And you still got 23 feet to the ridge.
I'll tag on to what you're saying. It baffles me too, and it's really weird that we make such a big deal out of 1 foot, and that goes for both of us. But this says it's 10.5 feet from basically it would be the apron to the finished floor, and this is going to be 10.5 here, but this is going to, we know this is 9.5 feet because the section shows that it's 9.5 feet. Then this element, which was 8.5, actually grew by a foot, so a swath right here, this building got taller. So I want to say the proportions, I mean, it's a stronger, there's seems to be more mass here, or what we're trying to do is diminish the mass. We're trying to bring it down. And from my perspective, it's a secondary structure, and the secondary structure needs to have, smaller, humbler ceilings. It's, we don't put, 10-foot plates or even 9.5-foot plates when we can make an 8-foot plate is fine for a second-story volume, scissor truss it up. And these are my comments only, but I understand what was happening here, and I want to call it just, I'm not comfortable with it. I'm wrestling with it. Comments from other board members?
So, Mr. Chair, kind of following up on that, I mean, I would be very comfortable if the second floor plate height went back to the preliminary drawings of 8.5 feet. And I think that's what we generally asked to do. The building being set down is a benefit, but the exposure of this building hasn't really changed.
Well, it was
We'll give you a moment to speak. And what he's commenting is you've got grade here, and from the back side of it, it was 24 feet from grade. But from this side where the elevation is, this is still the full height. The same building mass from the driveway side is still the same.
I can clear it up. Can I clear it up?
Is it a simple answer?
It's a simple answer. If you measure the height difference there to the difference there, you'll see it's been dropped a foot.
The building went down.
The building went down, and this.
Proportions didn't change.
Yeah.
But it was made. There was a statement at the meeting that said we really don't care what you do inside the building as long as you drop it the foot, because there was this discussion about where the plates were, and so that was the comment that we took home, and we dropped it a foot, and we apportioned the plates, and so we didn't realize, and because it was simply stated.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's okay. Comments from other board members?
Mr. Chair,
Denise.
well, I remember looking at the site section on A2.0 in the first iteration, and I think that this is a big improvement. I mean, as far as the apparent height of the building, it did drop. The proportion to the main house is much, much better than it was, I feel.
Okay.
I mean, yes, there is probably room to lower it another foot because it's a tall ceiling upstairs, but they did effectively do what we asked them to do.
Okay. Discussions? Anybody else?
Mr. Chair, I'm comfortable with it. I only have one minor suggestion. Mr. Chair, I'm comfortable with it. I only have one minor suggestion. In your section here with this scissor truss, make it a full stick frame.
Oh, with a structural ridge beam.
Pardon?
With a structural ridge beam.
Yeah. I think that aesthetically would look better.
Great. Any other? Bernie?
Did the balcony or this deck right here, was this here before, or did this just arrive?
The balcony was there, and we had a roof on it at the last meeting, it had tile on it, and that it was asked that be taken off. But it has been here. Yes, it's been a part of the project since the last meeting.
And so what material will it be covered with
It's
now?
a built-up roofing with cap sheet and rock.
Okay. All right, as if there's no other discussion, we can have a motion from the board. Actually, so the windows were added on both of these, and they mirror the windows that were on the original house? Is that what that statement was?
Well, this window was there, but we put this one was added.
This
Against
window, based upon that elevation.
Well, you're right. It was not there. This window, both of these windows were added. I'm sorry. Yes.
May I make a comment, Mr. Chair?
You betcha.
I think your original design was a better look.
The lower window.
Those are not traditional windows of that style of architecture. It also looks a little funny to have the roof vents sticking right on top of them like that. It was traditionally not done. I agree with Brian's comment about the windows.
Okay.
The height, I don't know how to fall on that. Generally speaking, it doesn't bother me, but I see what you guys are coming from on that, so I think there's room to reduce, but I'm not kind of on the fence on that.
Mr. Chair? Can I go in on the windows? I agree. I don't think that they're appropriate for this structure.
Sure. I think that first
Iteration was better.
And just a minor thing about the windows, too, if I can pull this out. These windows are clear without mullions, and these have mullions.
Mm-hmm.
And as long as we understand that and we're okay with a solution, that'd be another comment we can make. If it's fine. What's the original house have? Does it have breakups?
It has breakups. Yes.
Okay.
Kind of the mission style with it.
Okay. So, we have another 15 minutes we can spend on this project if we want. Or we can move ahead.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Yeah, I just want us all to remember that when this came here, some of the neighbors were here and they were concerned about their privacy. And so now that we have this deck, I guess you'd call it, covered, as probably will be, I just want us to really look carefully at that, what it's going to look like, how big it's going to be, and what it's going to be looking over at if it's following our guidelines.
I asked that question 2 weeks ago, and you can correct me, but this deck right here, where my pen is actually 15 feet from the property line, and that there's this roof below and the stair that wraps around it. So this terrace got smaller. Oh, here it is, this 15 feet. And before they had the whole roof area as a deck. And we made the comment of them pulling the deck back, which they did to this point. And that's our guideline, is to have second-story decks 15 feet away. And I'm glad you asked that question to clarify that. So what is the board's direction or decision for the project? And how do we want the project to move forward?
Mr. Chairman, do you think we need to take a vote on whether we're okay with the second floor plate height?
I'll take a straw vote on how many board members are okay with the presentation as it is today. the height of the building the way it is shown in this set of drawings. The height, which is 1 foot lower, but then they ended up lowering the grade so they can still get what they need inside.
So vote now?
Vote now. Who supports the project the way it is right now? So there's 3 members. So we're... Well, technically, I'm only supposed to vote when there is a draw or a tie. So if you're 3 and they're 2, so you're really the hinge.
What about your vote?
Technically, I should only vote when it's a tie. But in actuality, I'm not okay with the height because I see this as a secondary structure, and the height of it is large. And yes, you did lower the ridge by a foot. That's one thing. But by cutting it down, the building appears just as big as it was. I mean, from Cliff Drive and everything, when you look at the ocean, yes, the ridge dropped, but from, say, the neighborhood, from the appearance of the structure, it's still the same mass because you just brought the grade down. So I'm not okay with it. But I'll let Aaron be the hinge pinch, the swing vote. Because if I vote, then it's 3-3, and if, you know...
I think I'm generally okay with how it's presented.
Okay.
Great, thank you.
But I also,
We haven't made a motion to proceed yet.
I don't know the protocol, I apologize.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Can we talk about?
We're having a discussion.
Yeah.
among us.
Can we figure out what slight changes you might still possibly be able to do to get the rest of us on board?
What I'd like to state is that the grade around the building didn't change. It's really the concrete level inside the building. So if you look at the building from all 4 directions, except possibly the front where the driveway elevation stays where it was. It just slopes down into the garage. And if we didn't have the north to south fall, we'd have a hole there, but we do have drainage to the south. So I guess what I'm saying is that the building, it only presents itself differently if you're right up against the front garage door. Otherwise, the building really did drop 12 inches down, and because the grade to the back, the curb is a 12-inch concrete curb, and it's basically a small retaining wall behind it. And generally speaking, jurisdictions' heights, they're more concerned about what presents itself above the grade than...
If I can say, from the driveway area coming down the driveway, at one time this elevation was 189, and now it's 188. So this, at where the driveway curves, which is the easement to the flag lot down below, this grade dropped by 1 foot. And this ridge also dropped by 1 foot, but the building did not get any shorter or smaller or more petite from this elevation, which is with a flag lot easement side. The other 3 sides, he is correct, because they basically dug it into the ground.
So we're talking about a private view, private driveway.
Well, we're really talking about we're always talking about neighborhoods. We're always talking about this gets done and then this gets done and then that one over there. So we want to make sure that these kinds of things really are compatible and follow the guidelines. If anything, erring in the slightly smaller rather than the more aggressive designs. And I think some of us feel this may be borderline aggressive.
Okay. Discussion from anybody else?
my only concern is those 2 attic windows. I think
Why don't you float a motion, Mr. Miller?
I have a motion to restore the attic window to the original design that you had, more traditional look,
Which is a rectangular.
and that the window above the thing be removed altogether.
The window above the shed roof
Yeah.
over the terrace.
Yeah.
Remove.
Yeah, remove the one over the shed terrace altogether.
Okay. Is there a second for that motion?
Was there, I didn't even understand, what kind of motion was it?
Oh, that's true. We forgot the It would be a preliminary approval with final either on consent or full board.
The motion I had, what is that elevation? is to remove this window here,
which is on the south elevation.
which is on the south elevation, and to restore this window to the original rectangular, more traditional form with lights.
On the north elevation.
Yes.
And this motion would be for preliminary approval?
Yes.
Okay, making neighborhood preservation findings and all that stuff?
Yes.
Okay. And then would it be returned back to consent for final?
Yes.
Okay.
Did we see the color board already?
The color board would be
Same,
match existing.
What if windows and doors and garage doors?
We can tag that on as soon as someone seconds it to the motion. Is there a second to that motion?
Yes, I'll second that motion.
Denise. Okay. Will the maker of the motion be okay, which Brian, about adding a comment is to provide notes on the plans describing the existing building materials that are being matched?
Yes.
And then at consent to bring a cut sheet of the garage door?
Yes.
Okay. And a cut sheet of all the exterior light fixtures?
Yes.
Is there any other discussion for this motion?
Maybe add, what sort of chimney cap or top is going to be proposed?
Well, this is it's an appliance B flue, so it's just a fake. There's none required. It's just a gas appliance.
But there's a spark arrestor at the top?
Well, there's not even that. It's just a clay pot with plaster in it and a drain hole. So it's what you're looking at. It's really plaster top with a faux terracotta pipe sticking up 3 inches.
Okay. Is there any other discussion for this motion?
I was hoping to get my comment about the planters between the garages, if anyone agrees with that.
I wasn't even focused on that.
That would help with the massing.
Ask Mr. Miller. Brian, you notice on the site plan there's this triangular piece of land because there is a 1-foot grade difference between the garage doors. So in this triangular piece of land, there's an opportunity for some planting.
Okay.
So Aaron was suggesting planting a vine along that area, and that would grow at this point and then spread across.
Very good idea.
Okay.
I definitely agree with that.
So can you add that to the motion as well? Great. And I'm glad you spoke up. Any other discussion? If not, I'll call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
So there's 3 in favor. Opposed?
Aye.
Those 2, and I'll abstain. Yeah. So it's 3-2 and a abstention. And I guess I should clarify. Someone told me that I was only supposed to technically vote when it is a tie, and that the majority of the board and I'm more like the air traffic controller organizing the conversations. So that's the reason why I voted abstention, even though you know my opinion.
That's a good rule.
Yeah. In this case, it's in your favor, yes, or sometimes it's not.
I was thinking. Thanks, Paul. Appreciate it.
Before you
We need
leave,
to add to the motion the NPO findings?
is your mic on?
Yes.
And do you know the MPO items?
No, I don't.
I'm finding it as fast. Oh, page 5. Oh, she's got it handy.
Okay. So am I supposed to read something here? Recite?
On page 5, you're supposed to agree with number 1, which is consistency in appearance.
Okay, the consistent appearance, the proposed development will be consistent with the scenic character of the city and will enhance the appearance of the neighborhood. The proposed development will be compatible with the neighborhood in its size, bulk, and scale and will be appropriate to the site neighborhood. The quality of materials will match what's existing, including proposed structures. Grading is designed with quality architectural details and quality materials, which should match existing. Proposed materials and colors will maintain the natural appearance of the ridgeline or hillside. Should I read about the trees?
And then you just say that there are no trees being removed and
Okay.
that we're adding landscaping.
Okay,
in
there's
this
no
case.
trees being removed, and we're adding landscaping.
And I'll announce that there's a 10-day appeal period for this project. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
It's pretty painless.
Good.
I'll be limping out. Thank you, Brian.
All right. We're on to item 3, which is 226 Eucalyptus Hill Drive. This project is here for final.
Chair Zink, I have a few comments before you start on this one. Okay.
Whenever you're ready.
Actually, this is on for final for the drainage and grading only, not the architecture and landscaping. We've allowed them to just come forward with grading and drainage at this point, so they can go ahead and submit to get plan checks started early while they're working on all the final details on their landscape and architectural details. Okay, so they've run that by us, and staff
As long
is
as
fine with
staff's
that.
okay with that.
Okay, and as a courtesy to the neighbors who are concerned about drainage, and also just for clarification, we've asked them to put a note on the plans, and I'll read what that note says, just to get this in the minutes, to make sure that this is complying with City Council conditions. So it says, this civil design for on-site and off-site drainage meets or exceeds the City Council conditions of approval for 25-year and 100-year storm events. Additionally, this particular design retains or detains the difference in the post minus the pre-100-year storm event on-site. So, like I said, this is for the benefit of the neighbors to know that they're aware that this has been followed through to this point.
Okay, can I ask you a question?
Yes.
This design or this approval that we're giving today is just for the grading and drainage, and it doesn't talk about any landscape restoration work at the completion of the grading phase.
That's right. It does include a tree protection plan.
Okay.
Because some trees are impacted by grading, but no new landscaping is part of this.
And there's some kind of bond or there's some kind of guarantee that if the developer goes belly up halfway through, that the landscaping will get restored or something like that?
Well, we have that, but in this case, a grading permit will not be issued early. They're just going into plan check early, but before they even get a permit on this, they will be back with landscaping and architecture, and everything will be going in for permits at the same time, basically. Okay. This is just to give them a little additional time for plan check.
So the permit won't be issued until the landscaping has gotten final approval and all that stuff?
That's right, yes.
Okay. Good.
Mr. Chair, I'm going to step down on this item.
Okay. Aaron stepping down. Your name and a presentation. I think we have some minutes to review.
Okay. Greg Griffin from Shubin and Donaldson Architects. And no real presentation. The drawings that you see here is consistent with the drawings that you reviewed for preliminary approval. Maybe just one point to tag on to Kathleen's answer in terms of the landscape. This set of drawings does include post-grading erosion control measures for the lower lot that's not getting planted out as part of the main application. So just to clarify that point.
Okay. Do we have any minutes that relate to grading and drainage?
There may be. So maybe just let me read them. Project is compatible with the neighborhood. Massing is relatively low with natural materials, well landscaped. The underground drainage is a huge improvement. Number 2, include the phasing process on the drawings. Number 3, provide additional landscape information for the easement along Woodland Hills. Number 4, provide notes about the temporary irrigation for the oak trees. And number 5, study ways to increase permeable paving wherever possible.
Okay. Presentation. Do you want to talk about the phasing since the ball's in your court, or do you want us to ask you that as a question during the question phase?
Yeah, I'm happy to address it now. It was our intent to actually put a phasing, project phasing diagram on the cover sheet of the architectural drawings. So you won't see it here on the cover of the civil drawings. Though, to repeat what we've said last time, this civil package does include the entirety of all grading and drainage proposed as part of the City Council resolution.
So just to reiterate, is that the grading and drainage that's being proposed is not phased. It's all the entire site, and the phasing is just the architectural improvements.
That's right.
That's correct, because they're coming here with the two upper buildings, and then they'll be coming back later for, I guess, phase 2 for the lower lot buildings.
Okay, cool. Do you have anything else? Nope. Then I want to open up public comment. We have a speaker, Tony Vassallo. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Tony Vassallo, and my wife and I own the property adjacent on Woodland, adjacent to Cindy's house at 860 Woodland. And as you can see, that property, her property goes all the way down to the Woodland cul-de-sac, and our properties are immediately adjacent. And in the course of all of the other public hearings, a lot of testimony was given regarding the drainage. And since subsequent to the appeal at the city council meeting, from that time until now, the two major things have happened is that the project has been phased, which I think you're aware of at this point. And the second thing is that the drainage plan has been substantially changed. I've had informal discussions with Kathleen and also with the Public Works Department, and it would appear that the changes made are a substantial improvement over the previous drainage plan, because they're going to be retaining much of the stormwater in underground cisterns and then meter it out so that it'll have less of an impact on the Woodland Street, because it drains out onto Woodland. Other aspects of the dialogue along the way was there are requirements in the text, the written conditions, which protects our oak tree. We have an oak tree that's basically very close to the property line on Cindy's property. I think it may show on the plan there. And there were some special provisions required in the event that the previous drainage plan was to be built. But because of these changes, I'm not sure that they come into play anymore, Kathleen. Maybe you could speak to that.
I can.
Thanks. Because I know that the grade, there was a swale on grade that's been removed and the piping is underground now. So we want to be sure that our oak tree is not damaged with the construction of anything that goes on with the Woodland property next to us. And that in discussing with Mark Wild and the Public Works Department, the plans will now reflect that the whole drainage system, I understand, is going to be done for the whole project, and that it will meet the standards discussed at the City Council meeting for a 100-year storm event.
Great.
And I think that's all good.
Well, thank you.
It seems like there was one other point I wanted to make, and I can't think of it right now. It would be, I think, very, for clarification purposes, if the report, the actual text report that goes with this project, if that could also include the documentation that's being placed on the plans, that it's in the written report, so there's absolutely no confusion when this goes to plan check. It'll be in the written report as well as on the plans. That would be greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other public speakers for this project? Do we have any public comment letters?
Yes, Mr. Chair, we have a letter in opposition from Paula Westbury.
Okay. Kathleen, do you want to add anything else?
Yes, just to answer the question about the oak tree protection, on the tree protection plan, part of your set there, I think the last page, there is a note to show that you find it there to protect that oak tree. There will be grading in that area because there is an underground pipe going through and some digging up there, so the tree will be protected during that
And I do see the note. It's right here. Thank you. So it's back to the board for questions of the applicant, and then we will go to comments.
Mr. Chair.
Bernie?
Tony, I thought we got some emails about this, or was that in the last hearing?
I don't recall any recent ones for this meeting, not since the last time.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other discussion or comments?
Mr. Chair, kind of just, if the applicant could kind of point us in the right direction as far as the phasing and the grading, if we're not 100% sure of the phasing, what sort of measures, erosion control measures, are either on the set or will be included in the set to maintain that these slopes are protected if phasing becomes a longer duration than
Sure.
Immediacy of...
Explain what phasing means, just for the general public.
Okay.
By phasing, we mean that the overall scope of the project, which actually includes 4 structures, will happen at different periods over time. They're not all going to be built simultaneously. And in terms of the landscape clarification, as Kathy mentioned, anything proposed in terms of landscape from this new property line uphill will be included, and you guys will have the opportunity to review that prior to the grading permit being issued.
Which it would be the final review for the project.
That's right. Anything downhill of this property line is being addressed by the civil engineer with some permanent erosion control measures in the form of some jute netting, which is shown here on this plan.
And that can stay for 20 years if that house never gets built.
Actually, time frame, I don't actually know. I would have to clarify, but I don't think it's 20 years.
All right. Okay. And then going back to the landscape phasing, there was something about oak trees, that they're going to be planting a whole bunch of oak trees. There needs to be an irrigation plan. Will some of those oak trees be occurring in the lower parcel of land?
Right.
Okay. But that will be reviewed later.
Yeah.
All right, I think I understand it. Do we have any other questions? We can go to comments and then a motion.
Mr. Chair, just one clarification question. Has there been any changes to grades since we saw it last time? The building's moving, changing dimensions, tweaks and
No.
driveways?
Footprint and floor elevations of all the structures are the same as what you saw at preliminary review. No positioning of the buildings have changed. Road elevations haven't changed.
And no manipulation of terraces to regrade anything?
Mm-mm.
Okay.
Okay.
Mr. Chair?
Bernie.
Yeah, regarding that, you're talking about this netting. So could you explain to us, are you asking right now, even though the 4 properties aren't going to be developed yet and they're going to be phased, we're already working on 2 houses on one of the lots, but you're wanting approval now for all of this stuff to happen at the same time as the house, as the first part of the project, and then as Paul, that got me concerned. So is that what it's going to look like, or are there going to be some other mitigation things that we're going to impose that are going to move it along, or could it actually stay like that for years?
Well, no, as Kathleen pointed out, the planning department will not allow Public Works to issue us a grading permit to do any of this work that you see here until we come back to the board with the architecture and landscape for final review.
For all 4 of the projects?
For the entire site as far as landscape goes. As far as architecture goes, our building permit will only cover these 3 structures on the upper lot. This is a different lot than this down here.
So there will have to be a landscape plan implemented or just designed, or?
There will be a landscape plan implemented for this upper lot in its entirety. As Paul pointed out, there are a number of oak tree saplings that are proposed on this lower lot. I think there's 60 to 70 of them down here alone. Beyond that, there will be minimal landscaping in this area proposed as part of this application.
But the grading will already be done.
The grading will be done.
Okay, I think I get it. Thank you.
Yeah.
Good. Good questions. Good answer. All right.
I have a question of staff. So now that you've studied this, what is your, are you in support of this, or what is the staff position?
Yes, staff is in support of them going forward with this and the plan. Yes.
Mr. Chairman? Yes, I would like to piggyback on what this gentleman mentioned. I believe I'm looking at his oak tree, or the oak tree that's right over the property line. You have lot 8, is that correct? Yes. Yeah, so I'm seeing that, and there are pipes going really, they're underneath the drip line. They're proposing sewer and all that. But that, of course, isn't necessarily a good thing for that to go underneath the drip line of that oak tree. And I'm wondering what kind of other mitigation can be done there. I mean, this is the neighbor's oak, basically. Is there an easement along there? Is that what's going on? There's like a
there will be an
utility
easement on this parcel here.
Mm-hmm.
And what is not shown in these drawings is where that easement occurs. And it's known that easement needs to come north of that shared property line in order to not impact that oak tree.
I see. So
the easement will not be right along that property line.
oh, good. Okay, well, then that handles that.
It'll be uphill. Yeah.
Okay, great.
Just one more question, Mr. Chair.
Sure.
Thank you. So, as part of this grading, how many of the non-oak trees, there's eucalyptus trees there, there's a lot of trees there, are they all going to be cut down or what?
Which trees are you on the lower part of the lot?
Yeah.
Well, there's an existing eucalyptus grove.
Right.
South of this line, it will remain, and within that will be planted some of the oak tree saplings I mentioned. Most of the trees uphill, aside from those that are shown on this tree protection plan, will be removed as a part of the grading. So Arcadia Studio is pretty clear here in terms of these trees to be removed. The remaining of these trees that aren't shaded in this darker color are meant to stay. Some of which are oak trees, which are being protected according to Bill Spiewak's arborist report.
So just 5 trees are going to be removed?
Yeah.
I have a question.
Yes.
How does the city feel about eucalyptus trees? I know in the county they're concerned about high fire and that eucalyptus trees can be torches and are actually encouraging them to remove them. So I just don't know, does city have a policy on eucalyptus trees or?
I don't believe we have a policy. I know we have the same concern about the high fire areas, about the fire. I know that they've, I think in the past, have cleared some of them or, separated the trees a little bit in that whole Eucalyptus Hill area to reduce the fuel.
Thank you.
But on the other hand, we have to remember that trees in certain parts of town, even eucalyptus trees belong there and have been there a lot longer than we have and aren't hazardous.
Okay.
That's true.
Well, folks, someone like to make a motion, or should I float a motion? Float. I was also told I'm not supposed to be doing that as often as I do. But I will float a motion for, is this final approval for the grading? Final approval of the grading and drainage only, carrying forward all of the comments from the previous meeting, with the understanding that no grading or grading will occur on site until after final landscaping has been approved by this board for both lots. Okay? That's a motion if someone would like to first it and second it.
Second.
Second it. Staff, was that motion clear and correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other discussion about the motion? All right. I'll call for a vote. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. All right. There you go. We're 10 minutes early. Is the applicant for 1131 Los Pueblos Road here? Yes, he is.
Thank you for coming.
We'll start this one 10 minutes early. This is a preliminary review, so we've seen this project before. Oops.
Hi, Brian Murphy, architect for the project. And, we were continued that last review to the zoning modification hearing officer. And we went there to...
Let me ask staff a question. Should we work off of those since we're getting preliminary approval?
They actually have revised a little bit. And I called, you get my message about that, Tony? So I need to fill out my...
He was out of town last week on vacation. That happens.
Left him a message, but...
Let's put what he has on top of this, and we'll compare the two. Because for preliminary review, we're supposed to look at the ones that staff had submitted.
Right.
Okay.
But I believe we noticed the last time we were here. So anyway,
Before you start with your presentation, let's review the minutes. And was Aaron in the room?
He's disappeared.
All right. We'll start without him.
He noted the time as 4:25, 4:25 before he left, so he's...
Okay. Glenn, what are the minutes from the last time we saw this project?
Number one, the size, bulk, and scale, and style, and quality of architecture are appropriate to the Riviera neighborhood. Number two, the modification to permit stair encroachment into the front yard setback is acceptable. Number three, study preserving the redwood trees at the rear of the property.
That's it? All right, Mr. Murphy.
we went to the modification hearing officer, and we got a modification to allow our stair to encroach into that front yard setback, and we're largely replacing in place an existing stair there. However, since that time, and since we were at this board previously, we have reduced the scale of what we're proposing, and are proposing to demolish less of the existing building, and keep more of the existing building intact. We had a preliminary cost estimate, and in order to make the project viable, we needed to scale it back a little bit. So the project has actually moved a little bit and changed the configuration, but it hasn't moved or changed configuration in terms of this encroachment. So modification hearing officer said that I was free to move forward. But the building is slightly different than what you saw. The configuration is now saving much more of the existing house. The walls in white are existing, and the additions are smaller, and saving much more of existing structure. We are still relocating the existing garage, or relocating the garage. The existing garage was here under the existing house. We're now doing an addition down below that is there. Unfortunately, sorry about the bleed through. And adding this little portion and converting what was habitable space down below or some of the habitable space that was down below to new garage, and some to storage area and an elevator up. And so with that, we were trying to maintain sort of the architectural approach that we had, and keep the spirit of what we were working on before, simplifying it a little bit. I don't know if you remember the previous building, but it had the porch that wraps around at a lower slope, and then the pitch breaks, and we go up to a steeper roof. And that was bending at a 45-degree angle around the front, which was a little problematic and kind of complicated things. I think it works much better to have changed it to a square corner there and not try and have that 45-degree wrapping of that porch. We've also, in order to keep the existing walls, we've dropped our plate to 8 foot for much of the house, only stepping up as the lot steps up to the back for our new master suite addition, and there we're stepping up to a 9-foot plate. As the building steps up the hillside, we step up to a 9-foot plate for our master suite in the back there. But and also, I think that we had talked a little about being careful to maintain some white space here above the arches, and I'm actually dropping, since our view is down, I'm actually dropping my spring line to a 6-foot height and letting this archway work up from there to maintain a little bit more space there. It was a little bit tighter before. Trying again to incorporate large area of solar panels. Like I was saying, a porch that comes out at a lower slope, and then the main roof steps up to a much steeper slope so we can get our solar efficiency. We do have some skylights that we were talking about previously as well, but they're all to the back side of the ridge, not really visible to any neighbors. There's actually a piece of property behind our property that is not ours, but that we have an exclusive use easement to, that is wooded, and we're maintaining it as wooded. That's actually this little piece back here, and this is open space beyond that. So there really is no one back there behind us. There are houses here and here, but this is quite wooded, and you can't really see through there either. We've scaled back a little bit on the paved area, trying to keep as much of the site available for landscaping as possible, and working a path that works around the building, but trying to minimize the paving on the site and keep as much green space as we can. Straightened out the road is kind of convoluted in terms of the existing edge. It kind of comes out here. This dash line represents what?
Ma'am? Sorry.
What was the front of the roadway, and my thought was to kind of straighten it out and make sort of a rational line along that edge. It goes in and out and all around currently, and my thought was to work with Public Works to straighten the front of that road out. In terms of the minutes from the last meeting, we definitely wanted to save those 2 redwood trees, and we talked a little about that we are still removing 1 redwood tree out in the front here, but we are going to save the 2 redwood trees to the back of the property. I think in terms of our revisions, we actually have our numbers wrong a little bit, and the proposal is really to demolish 564 square feet of the existing house. It's a little more complicated than that, because some of the habitable space downstairs is being converted to garage, some is converted to storage space, but basically 564 square feet removed and adding 723 square feet for a proposed total of 3,172.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll open up public comment. Is there anybody wishing to speak on this project? This project is 1131 Los Pueblos Road. Seeing nobody, go to staff. Do we have any letters on file?
Yes, we have a letter in opposition from Paula Westphal.
Okay. It's back to the board for our closed public comment. Back to the board for questions of the applicant.
Chair.
Glenn.
Just some clarifications. Can you go over the new FAR? Because this agenda, what's on the agenda is probably not matching up with this property right now.
Right. It actually is. It says 75% is what is agendized.
Yes.
But we're actually 80% because we have some storage area that's been converted from existing habitable space down below, and I'm counting that at this point. I wasn't counting it previously because I was turning it into garage space, or it was part of the garage, but now it's not. Now it's just storage, if that makes sense.
Okay.
So our FAR is actually up from what we were before, even though we're adding less square footage.
Okay. Also, Tony, do we have any pictures of the existing house?
Yeah.
It's
right
yeah,
here.
okay.
Can I see the old drawings, the previous set?
Yeah, that was the other question. And then, what's at the tower? What is happening at the upper levels? Is anything relating to that tower?
No, it's just an architectural element where the roofs come together, and it's a.
Will it vent?
Yes. Serves the purpose of venting. So we were somewhat more elongated. We've compacted the new structure a little bit.
Yeah.
Yes.
I guess I had a concern with the overall ridge height, because if you kept with the 8-foot plate, it's making the house look very tall. Like even this side elevation was kind of scaring me, and I apologize for using that word. But I want to just say what I'm looking at here and looking at here, I think that the board should review.
Mm-hmm. And in order to simplify the roof structure, instead of hipping the building all the way around and having multiple roof forms, we've decided to run a simple ridge down the middle here and scissor truss up. Our existing roof height was here. The new scissor trusses would come up like that.
What's this height?
I forget.
In your elevations.
7 and 12 pitch, so that we good solar efficiency. Approximately 24 feet.
Okay. Do you have a roof plan in the old set of drawings?
I do. It was significantly more complex, and the ridge broke much earlier with a low slope running all the way to the back. So I'd broken the slope with a steeper slope at the front of the building, and there were some board members that were a little concerned with how that would work.
Let me borrow your scale.
Sure.
And that's like 19 feet, did you say?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Are there other questions for the applicant? I would say the garage area, I understand that these are two garages, and behind here was that storeroom and the elevator area.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a roll-up door just for this, so it looks similar, or are there going to be plans for bicycle parking? You need a roll-up door there because you can't put a car there? What's the thinking behind that?
It's kind of a workshop area, to work on things and bicycle parking and all that sort of thing. And rather than converting to a man door, it just seemed much more logical to maintain the rhythm of 3 doors down below.
Okay. All right. I asked my questions.
I have a couple of questions.
You go for it, Bernie.
Thank you. Tony, is it okay for people to cut down redwood trees, or when is that going to fall into our new tree ordinance?
Is that tree in the front setback?
About 1 inch of it is, according to this document. So,
I think the ordinance says something about at least 50% of the trunk has to be in the setback for the city Parks and Rec to get involved. So it's really up to this board.
So technically, it's not in the front yard setback, and so it's our board's purview on whether or not that tree gets removed.
Okay. And another question, Lisa, we'll talk about that. The proposition before us changed a little bit so that what the public has isn't really what we're seeing right now?
It'll be our comment that it'll get updated and revised, but based upon his discussion, the conditioned floor area was reduced, but now he's counting some underground storage area, so the net is an increase, even though the actual size of the building has reduced.
Okay, I'm just
Verbally, that's what he
concerned
said.
about, how the public is getting the information, and everything needs to be accurate. Thank you.
All the floor area over 5 feet tall should be included in the FAR. It doesn't matter if it's conditioned or garage or house. Or
Right. That's why the FAR is larger, because now I am including that storage area.
And then I would also say that in the attic space, if the attic is greater than a certain height, then we do count those attics.
If it has access and if it has a floor.
It's a scissor truss for most of them.
Okay. Can you quickly reiterate the discussion about this redwood tree in the front?
It's a very tall tree. It provides a lot of shade. It would significantly impact our solar collectors and greatly reduce our ability to make those function efficiently. We are maintaining the two back here, and are happy to do that. It's just that this one really shades much of the front of the south-facing part of the site.
I have a question, Mr. Chair.
Go for it.
Do they design Spanish colonial solar panels?
No, they don't. But we plan to use low-profile, dark.
Because that's really a
Bronze
conflict
anodized.
when you try to do traditional architecture and then you're introducing something in the which is a very green technology, but it's an absolute conflict with the style of the architecture, having all those black panels on a two-piece tile roof.
Well, my concept was to do it in an organized fashion rather than you see a lot of roofs that have them sort of imposed up there in a willy-nilly sort of pattern.
Yeah.
My concept was to do it as organized as possible, use the low profile, let the shallower roof slopes that come out towards you, you would really see those much more than you see any roof way beyond until you get a distance away from the building.
Okay, thank you.
So let's move on to comments, folks.
Mr. Chair. I'm having some concern with the overall massing of the project. I mean, the previous drawings, which are under here somewhere, that we looked at last time, had more roof lines at a lower level that intersected before this main mass came up. And it also had different roof pitches on it before, where they were lower in some cases. What the roof lines that I see here are all like 7.5 or so, which are very tall for this style. And in particularly this east elevation here just is reading very massive. And it seems like the way the project is being designed is the whole roof is coming off in order to put this scissor truss back on.
Yes.
So there's opportunity to do things with the roof to make it less massive. In addition to that, I think the tower, particularly over on this elevation in the west, is even adding to that the massiveness of that roof, and it probably could be integrated a little bit better to not protrude so much off that side. But I'm having difficulty with the massing of the project in general.
Okay, thank you. Next.
Mr. Chair, I have to weigh in with Glenn on that. I agree completely with what he's saying about the tower and the roof. And I also had another question. I mean, we do like to encourage solar, but I also agree about the panels there. Has the applicant thought of having an array that's on at ground level somewhere else on the property instead of on the roof?
We haven't explored that, but we did increase the size of the array because what we had proposed previously was not actually enough to make it pencil out.
Yeah, it's sort of, in my opinion, when you have to have that big of an array, sometimes the roof isn't the right place to put it. I mean, if you have an option, it might be something to explore.
Denise and Aaron, can I have you comment about the one oak tree in the front? The redwood tree, I'm sorry.
I thought the way we left off last time it wasn't a very significant tree, but do we have photos of that to refresh?
I looked in here and I wasn't able to find a picture of it, and that's how I remembered. And I thought it had to do with grading getting into the garage. That was the reason why that the tree was being removed. But it wasn't being removed just to have greater efficiency of the solar panels.
I do remember that, actually.
The solar panels?
Yeah. It's a 16-inch redwood. That's decent size, I
I'd like to see a photo, though, if we have one.
Okay. I think it'll be coming back to us so we can, on our own, plus we can ask them to bring some additional information about that tree. Comments from other board members? Mr. Miller.
When I look at this east elevation, it looks more like Dutch architecture rather than Spanish. It's like you're approaching a kind of colonial Dutch. So I don't know.
I'll jump in that I see commercial architecture. I don't see residential architecture. It is very large and it lost its delicateness and its, expensive little details and all little roof breakups. But if you want a simple structure, it can't be so large. It can't have such a great profile. And if before you were 19 or 20 feet, now you're 24 and you're a wider ridge, it's too big. And the tower between the old one and the new one, it's too big. That's in addition to studying the redwood tree, looking into that. Bernie, do you have anything, or should we go straight to a motion? Okay.
Mr. Chair, may I just jump in about the redwood tree?
Yeah.
This project was here before, and there was comments, specific comments in our minutes about the trees in the rear yard to be maintained.
But not the front.
Correct. So the majority of the board before was comfortable with that direction. So I personally am fine with, he's retained the redwoods in the back. The front, we'd love to see maybe some other landscaping feature there, but to me personally, that's not a make or break deal there.
Okay, that's a valid point. Discussion or a motion? If nobody makes a motion, I get to appoint somebody.
I'll try a motion, Mr. Chair. I'd like to thank the applicant for trying to hear our guidelines and adhere to them, and we appreciate that. And we would like the applicant to return to the full board with the following comments in their redesign. Is one, reduce the overall height, and number two is reduce the proportions of the tower element and make the tower fit integrated into the building, make it shorter. It appears like a 3-story almost right now. And the third item is research other types of solar panels, possibly to find one that is more fitting with the design. And number 4 is bring in a photo of the front redwood tree so that we can see that we're okay with it going bye-bye. That's the motion.
Well, the motion representing the majority of the board. So is there a second for that?
Second.
Second, Mr. Glenn. Any other additional comments?
Mr. Chair, when Bernie talked about reducing the height, I think we should include reducing the mass of the building as well. I think he maybe made reference to it with the tower, but mass is an important feature, not just height.
To add that.
Could we also add a phrasing like enhance the architectural character?
I'm not comfortable with those. They're a little too vague.
Can you be more blunt?
Diminish the expansiveness of the roof lines.
He minored in English.
That's
I
my.
majored in English.
Okay. But I think, Brian, you understand what we are saying, even though the minutes won't reflect that.
Sure.
We won't forget that, even though we did forget about the comments of the oak tree and all that stuff. So.
Redwood tree.
The the redwood.
Could we have Gloria read that back to us so that everybody understands if they want to add anything?
Reduce the overall height and mass of the building, reduce the proportions of the tower elements, and to integrate better into the building. Research other types of solar panels to be more fitting with the design, provide a photo of the front redwood tree, and then diminish the expansiveness of the roof lines. Was that to stay in?
Perfect. Can I just add one more comment, either for you or staff, is to update the project description so that the next time you come in front of the board, the mailed noticing to the people who spoke will reflect the current numbers?
Absolutely.
So that's important to do. Any other discussion on this project? And this would be an indefinite continuance back to the full board, or would you like a 2 or 4 week continuance?
2 week, if we could.
So Bernie says 2 week continuance. So I'll call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We'll see you in 2 weeks.
Thank you.
We are going to take a 5-minute break. The next item starts at 4:50, and we'll just reopen at 4:40. Which is 526 Sea Ranch Drive. Before I read the project description, I just want to disclose that I used to work for the former owner of the property, and it was more than 2 years ago. And I was going to ask the owner if he had an objection with me being here. So I'll ask you folks, do you have an objection for me being here? Because I have past knowledge of the site.
Might be helpful.
All right, then I'll stay put.
It seems kind of like a trick question.
Well, considering the history on this site, it is a trick question.
All right.
But I stress the word former client.
Okay. Yeah, we have no problem with you.
All right. I'll read the project description. This is the first time this project has been heard. It is a proposal for an addition and remodel to an existing 2,277 square foot, one-story single-family residence and an attached 519 square foot two-car garage. Additions consist of 923 square feet on the first floor and a new 410 square foot second story. The proposed total of 4,129 square feet on the 1.6 acre lot is in the Hillside Design District, is 78% of the maximum guideline floor to area ratio. Proposed new construction includes drainage improvements at the orchard and grading for additions and auto court. The project includes the abatement of violations in an enforcement case 2008 by permitted as-built work consisting of 700 cubic yards of fill grading for orchard and driveway paving, landscape, and retaining wall. Great.
Great.
So if I have your name for the record in your presentation.
So I'm Sam Maphis, the landscape architect for Mr. Dan Claus, who's here with us, and Robert Foley, the architect.
Okay.
So maybe we could speak of some of the history that you might know about. The violation is what I'm hopefully going to explain. The amount of fill that was brought in is in the center of this plan in the green shaded area. Previously, it had more of a pronounced swale, and the previous owner to Mr. Claus filled that in and feathered that out so that it was less severe and planted this orchard. And part of that was to retain a little bit of this lower area to allow the driveway to come up and meet the new grade. All this was done previous to Mr. Claus buying the property and without permits. So what we looked at doing was, of course, bringing it up to current standard for permits. And that entailed a couple of things. Historically, we had to go back and look at the drainage. There was some environmental questions about this swale. There were also some public work questions about drainage and drainage devices because Sea Ranch Road through a storm drain picks up here and actually exited and dumped water onto the site that ran across into another culvert, then under these two driveways and daylighted here. So the previous owner did some filling, attached this pipe under and daylighted it here. So those are the kinds of questions that we exercised with Public Works, with environmental planners at the city to try to come up with a good conclusion for the new permitted set of drawings you're looking at. So what we've come up with, of course, is to keep this orchard, to keep the fill in place, to do the right structural civil engineering. Mr. Gones, our civil engineer, has come up with a plan to actually daylight the pipe in regards to Tier 3 requirements for the city. So this pipe that comes from Sea Ranch will actually vertically daylight, and the water will move across this swale. We'll take out one row of avocado trees in the center to allow this bioswale to create a percolation area, a riparian, somewhat habitat through the middle of the property. And then it'll actually retain itself here, perk into the ground. Where it can't perk, it'll go into another vertical pipe that then, as it did before, takes it under the driveway and daylights it here. So all this water is being bioswaled per Tier 3 on this side of the property, and also this side of the property we've created another bioswale to create the flow into this basin or this swale along this side of the drive. So we're not taking it onto the driveway and speeding it up and dropping it in here. We're bioswaling this half and this half, including much of Sea Ranch Road, which is a storm drain that exits onto the property. So by virtue of looking at the city requirements, we've come up with our landscape plan. You look at the plantings that will be, I think maybe it's in the back. I think it's the L1 sheet. You'll see how the cross-section of the bioswale is all cobble and riprap with plantings integrated in a small feeder pipe that goes into this swale that's also perking, as well as allowing the French drainage to perk back into the soil. So the pictures that I brought basically show you the conditions of the neighbor's driveway, which is, again, a parallel condition here. The culvert did exist previously. It still exists. We're going with this pipe back down into that culvert under the driveway. This little orchard will remain except for one row that we'll take out for the bioswale. The retention basin that you see and that catch basin is down in this area. So we'll pond the water here and let it go back and under. The rest of the site in terms of landscape at this point is staying the same. There's existing planting, existing hedging along the driveway and along Sea Ranch. So the real condition is just the center of the property we're trying to get up to code.
Okay.
Okay?
Do you want to talk a little bit about the extra, is there any driveway work being happening?
Well, I can let Robert go into that.
Okay.
I think the
That's
driveway
fine.
coming up to here, we're going to actually have a new entrance and a new wing that I think Robert can get into
Yeah,
at this point.
The landscape design hasn't been done for the addition to the house yet. That we've been concentrating on just getting this done. And we originally were told that we needed to get this taken care of before we could even submit for the house. But I guess it's okay if we run the addition to the house and this at the same time.
Okay.
But in doing that, we don't have any landscaping for the house, but I can go through it. So We got a 1.61 acres. It's a pretty big lot. As you know, there's an existing house. We're adding some small additions here and there on the first floor and one addition on the second floor. So the house will be a 4129 square foot. It's only 78% of the max in 0.06 FAR. So this is the existing site plan, what's there now. Right now you come up and you pull in here, and it's kind of awkward because there's no real way to get to the entry, which is here. There's a breezeway, but it's kind of dark and not very inviting. So our plan was to extend the driveway starting here, and this will become landscaping, go beyond and pull into the garages this way so you don't see them as you approach, and then build a new auto court. And there'll be a wall here, and then the highest point way in the corner is 7 feet, then it drops to 0 and then to 0 on each side, which will create a new parking and turnaround for the entry. And then we'll put a new entry. We're going to fill in the breezeway, then we're going to add a new family room on this end, and a little addition to the bath. And the second story sits about right here.
Okay.
These pictures of, these are the neighborhood houses. Houses in the neighborhood. Maybe Dan can explain.
This is my home, the
This one
top row.
And that's it from the driveway.
Yeah, this is the pictures of the site as you approach the house, and then these are neighbors, adjacent neighbors across the street.
And this is the first floor plan, which the screened areas here is where we're going to add to the house. And we're going to move the existing kitchen from this area here and rotate it because there's a nice view going this way. And this is the room they're going to spend most of the time in. And it has a nice covered patio off of it. The master bedroom gets reworked, just remodeled. We're not adding any square footage other for the tub. We got a new entry, and we're filling in this. There's a roof over this already. We're going to fill it in so we can gain a bedroom. And the second story, the staircase coming up, just a single bedroom with a bathroom upstairs.
Some elevations?
The elevations, this is the new entry. So you have a little gable. We're thinking of a metal roof with white vertical board siding. New doors and windows that will be double hung, corner boards. And it'll have more of a New England shingle style feel to it. This is the far end. It's the master bedroom on the side, and then that's the second story from the side elevation.
Do you have an elevation showing what the overall height is, or what the plate to plate is? Any information about that
Well,
verticality?
the existing plate is 8, and the second story plate we're going to go with 8 because it's just we can't do anything with the first story. The only place we're going to lift up is here, and this is going to be a 10-foot story. That's
the
wing.
new wing.
The new wing will have just to get a little height. 8-foot ceilings are really kind of low. We're going to volume the ceiling in the bedroom to get a little height in there, and there's a current volume ceiling in the living room we're going to keep.
Okay.
And we'll do a 8-foot plate with a volume ceiling upstairs.
Okay.
And the roof pitch is a 4 and 12. And this is just the other side of the house. This is
the road comes this
road.
direction.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And that's it.
Wonderful. With that, I will open up, or anything else? If not, I'll open up public comment. Anyone from the public wishing to speak? Do we have any speaker slips? We don't. Any letters?
Well, we got 2 emails that we received today that I forwarded them to you, but I don't know if you all had a chance to read them, so I can quickly summarize.
Actually, I will summarize. One of them was from a neighbor who was across the town and wasn't able to attend the meeting. They wanted us to postpone it by 30 days, and we normally don't do that. So that's...
Right.
Our board doesn't do that.
We got this email from James F. Coate. He's an attorney representing Hewitt and Pamela Lane at 515 Sea Ranch. And their concerns are that they didn't feel like they got adequate notice and were unable to see the plans before the meeting, but their main concern is introducing a second story into the lower Sea Ranch neighborhood. They say views of the ocean are one of the most desired aspects of their area, and they're concerned about this project setting a precedent which could lead to other neighbors adding second stories. Such a pattern could ruin many ocean views and would significantly change the neighborhood and negatively impact property values. The other email we got today was from George and Sherry Demopoulos. They live adjacent to the property at
Uphill
525
adjacent?
Kailas Caleras.
Okay.
They request that story poles be set up. The property is within their view area, and that a landscape plan be submitted showing the type of landscape screening proposed.
You know where they are?
It's going to either be this parcel or this parcel.
Maybe right behind you, to the east.
Yeah. It's got to be this parcel because this parcel is accessed on Sea Ranch Drive as a flag lot.
Okay.
So it's got to be this one.
It looks like a long one this way.
Okay. And was there a letter from Paula Westbury?
Yes.
Okay.
She's opposed to the project.
All right. Anything else?
We have some staff comments. The Creeks Division's been very interested in this project since it's sort of a creek going up there along Sea Ranch. So they reviewed it, and they did a site visit. They met Mr. Maphis out at the site, I don't know, at least several weeks ago. It's been a while. And they've seen this revised plan showing, well, when the application first came in, it just showed a direct pipe going through the property. And our environmental analysts and the Creeks Division, they weren't too comfortable with that. They were going to recommend it against that idea. So the applicant and Mr. Gones worked on a solution to bring the drainage to the surface and let it run down a bioswale. And Creeks Division, they like that solution. They just have one recommendation: to remove as much of the underground pipe at the north end of the property as possible within the property boundary in order to maximize the property's infiltration capacity. And they also say they look forward to reviewing a hydrology study to see that all the proposed additions to the house and the runoff from the driveway will all meet the SWIMP requirements.
Okay. Thank you. So I'll return it to the board for questions of the applicant. Mr. Miller.
Just from observing it, I think it's an excellent design. I love the way you've handled it. I like
That's a comment. We need to start with questions.
Oh, okay.
But that was a good comment.
I have no questions.
Mr. Chair, I have a couple of questions.
Bernie.
Just to clarify, so we're really looking at two things here. One is the abatement of the violations about the drainage, which it sounds like there's a solution that there was a site visit, and so that was a remedy for that. And then the second one is, I was wondering, have you talked to your neighbors about the proposal for the second story? Because it is possibly controversial in the neighborhood.
We have personally spoken with,
Either my wife or I or both of us have spoken with several neighbors about the project and the fact that it's two-story. We hand-delivered notices according to the requirements to notice this hearing. We spoke with the Langs, who were of the impression that there were CC&Rs that restricted us to one story in our neighborhood. However, in reviewing the CC&Rs that are recorded with my deed for the property, there is not such a restriction. We are allowed 2 stories, maximum of 2 stories. I spoke with my neighbor to the north, directly to the northwest, that abuts the property, She's in favor of the project. I spoke with the Giulio family to the further northwest and across the street, who were in favor of the property, in favor of the project. And then I received a phone call recently from Mr. Jerry Harris, who is directly north of me
Here?
in this house, who came down and apparently reviewed the plans. Expressed some concern over the second story, however, realized that because it's just a one-bedroom, one-bath addition, it's probably not going to impact his view that much. He didn't strongly oppose it. He just expressed that concern. My wife may have spoken to several other neighbors, but I'm not sure what their reactions to the project were.
Thank you.
Any upgrade to the neighborhood has been viewed as positive, though.
I do have a question. Is this a two-story house?
Yes, that's the... Yeah, they live across the street and north of one house.
Okay. So one can argue you're not necessarily a precedent-setting structure, right? Because there already is a two-story house
That
existing.
would be my perspective.
Other questions? Then let's go to comments.
Mr. Chair, maybe just a question. The auto court that I saw on the architectural plans, can you elaborate on what's going to happen there? There's quite a bit of area, so I just wonder what sort of development's going to happen there.
Sam's going to make that look really good. At this time, it's just really conceptual. We're going to get the car's back here, so as you arrive, you're in the front of the house and you enter in the front door instead of coming through the back door. And there will be a little bit of grading into the hillside, but it's on the back side of the house. I don't think anyone's going to see it. And eventually there'll be a landscape plan that will present, that will show what we're going to do.
I think also, Glenn, that this allows for guests to get to the front door area and enter the house through the public side. Before, all the parking was here right next to the garage, and you had to go through this, again, shuttered breezeway. So we're trying to get the guest parking here, not in this side area, so that then they can make a nice two-point maneuver and get back out and get all the way to the front door.
Or in this visible area where my guests currently park, if we're having any more than two people over, they're all
They
parking
pull off
right
on the
here
side,
on the mulch, which is very visible from the street.
I would say under a comment is that landscaping-wise, the 7-foot-high retaining wall needs to get addressed, and that you can take care of with landscaping, address
I'll
it
be
one way.
prepared to make a good, concept presentation. There's a big stone pine right here. It's very large, maybe 40, 50 feet at least in diameter. But
Isn't there a tree in the middle, too, of that
No,
auto
this
court?
is just grass. It's just a low grass area right now.
There is a sickly pine
in the middle
now
area? Okay.
that is, it's not a very big tree, but
Not
it's
that.
it's that little guy he's showing right there.
Okay.
Yeah, it's in the front up to the front door anyway.
And what sort of, it's asphalt driveway right now, and from this part forward, has there been thought as to what the materials of the drive and auto court may be?
I think it'd be nice to see some kind of permeable paver of some kind. I think
My thoughts are gravel.
or gravel, so I don't think we're going to continue the asphalt. We want to make it a little more
Okay,
rural, a little more user aesthetically friendly.
great. Any more comments about the project? We're not in a position to give preliminary approval, but I wanted to have a little discussion with the board members on the location of the second-story addition, the height, now that we know what the plate is, and whether or not we think we have concerns about the overall height, or we really don't have a concern, and story poles are something we would like to see or thinking about, or we have no concern as a board.
I think it's a very attractive addition. I think with a plate height of 8 feet, I don't see any reason to have story poles for something that's that inconsequential, really. It's not aggressive. I think it fits in rather nicely with the architecture.
Thank you. Any other discussions, or we'll roll into a motion?
Mr. Chair, I'd just like to repeat Denise's comments. I think they're all applicable, and I agree with them. I would like to have some information about the metal roof and colors and that sort of thing. Permeable pavement, second story. That's it.
Would you be ready to make a motion?
Well, I have a question that on our agenda says action could be taken. You made a comment saying it wasn't necessarily ready.
Not for preliminary, but maybe.
I'd like to chime in one quick thing. I'd like for Mr. Claus's concern and certainly his assurance that the violation, which is the majority of the front part of the site, which is the grading in the wall and the driveway, that was kind of a real stepping stone or a wall for us for a while. If comments could be made favorably that part of the landscaping seems to fit the rural character of the Sea Ranch neighborhood, the other things being kind of going to a flow of preliminary and final, I understand, but
We didn't ask any questions about this retaining wall. Do you have any photographs of what this is, or how is it, what's its exposure?
It's, 3 feet high?
Is that a 5, I thought?
It's
It says
a 3.
Okay, good.
It's a 3 foot
It's a
high wall.
block wall, kind of tan block color.
So it's not
there's
finished?
existing landscaping.
It's not plastered.
It doesn't have a stucco on it.
On the exposed side, there's only 8 inches of it showing on my
Okay.
side of the property.
I would concur with what you said, that we don't have a concern with the retaining wall, or I haven't heard of one, or with the solution that you have here. Maybe just bring a little bit more of a photograph or some kind of documentation to show how diminutive this wall is, and that
A
it's
finish would work if we landscape it or something.
Yeah, and if it's only 3 feet tall, it might not have to be finished because there's landscaping in front of it already. So, but for preliminary approval, I wouldn't advise the board to give preliminary approval because we don't have enough information about the landscape court, and you're missing your heights and your elevations. So you're on the correct road, but it would be a 2-week continuance or indefinite continuance back to the board to finish your design before we can give it preliminary.
That's fine.
That's great.
The bioswale, I think that is very much in keeping with the nature of the area, and I've reviewed the plants, and they're all appropriate to that application.
Great.
Mr. Chair, can
Yes.
I go back to questions just for a quick second and
Quick.
ask, the second story addition, which is
410
it's
square
400, okay. Are there any exterior living spaces attached, or decks, or porches,
There is
or patios?
A small balcony off on the view ocean side, and that's it. And not enough to stand out there, but not enough really to have a table or chairs or anything.
Okay, that's what I wanted to know. Thank you.
Great.
But not you. Well, sure.
Designed. Yep, it's nice.
So, indefinite continuance? Are you ready to come back in 2 weeks?
That's up to you. You gonna have something in 2 weeks?
We're going to roll.
It's your
2
call,
weeks.
not ours.
2 weeks.
Or we
2
could
weeks.
do 4
I'll do it.
No. Well,
We can do 2 weeks. Let's bring it back.
yeah. Okay.
Would someone like to make a motion?
Oh, God. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a 2-week continuance, returning back to the full board, also passing favorable comments back for the landscaping portion in the orchard area, addressing the drainage issues. I think those are positive designs. Also, I'd like to pass along favorable comments about the architecture, the scale, the massing, the detailing appropriate. The second floor seems to be a minimal part of the project, and we'd like to see the project come back.
Okay, is there a second on that motion?
I'll second, Mr. Chair. And I have a couple maybe things I could add.
Okay.
If we could, did you say anything about provide information on the roof material and the, you did?
No,
Okay.
no.
Oh.
You did?
Well, not as part of the motion, but
Okay,
that's
so we'd
typical
like
for
to see
preliminary.
that. And then we'd like to see the really accurate material drawings of the balcony or the deck or what that appears to look like. And you said the landscape plan, did you?
The
For
motor court
front?
landscape
motor
plan.
court landscape.
And obviously, when the applicant comes back to have a more complete landscaping plan for the entire project, for the entire site.
Great. We have a first and a second. Is there any other discussion? All right, I'll call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We'll see you in 2 weeks.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Great looking house.
Can I have those photos? We're now on to item 6, which is 380 El Solito Road.
Hey, Tony? I didn't know I have some positive letters.
Okay. Just come up here.
Can you read the plan that has the pictures attached to it? Yes, I do. I think you want. Because the numbers that I took it. Remember these numbers? That's the pictures that I gave you.
We're just getting our drawings ready. We'll be with you in a moment.
Well, we don't, oh, there. That's it. I don't know how to do this.
Actually, we need to work off of those because you turned in 3 sets of drawings.
So you don't need mine? It's
Is this the
drawing.
same?
Yeah.
We'd rather work off of those because those have the stamped receive stamp on them. Okay, I'm going to read the project description since this is the first time we've seen this project.
Okay.
This is a proposal for an as-built 617 feet of a 6-foot tall galvanized chain link fence along Seattle Lane.
Yep.
Trumpet vines are proposed to be planted on the fence. The project will abate violations and enforcement 2010. So if I have your name for the record and then your presentation.
Frank and Lynn Kirk.
Okay, 1 second. I need to just make sure your mic there, and you guys can share that one.
Frank Kirk, K-I-R-K, and Lynn Kirk.
Okay.
Lynn Kirk and my attorney, Rob Cato. Our attorney.
Robert Croteau.
All right. All right, you've got...
Our presentation. I notified all, we were burned twice in the El Cielito, in the Jesucita fire and the T fire. I notified my neighbors, I'm nervous. I notified my neighbors that we were going to bring some sheep down to eat the...
Clear our land.
From our ranch to eat our weeds that are down there.
We have some...
Oh, no, just...
I shouldn't.
Okay.
But we have a total of 9 acres, and 7 acres are
Wild.
fairly wild.
And
Okay.
So we brought them down, and on the existing wood fence, we put some barbed wire. And about a week after, we found a dead sheep. So my husband and I drove down back there, and we found that one of our neighbors, had taken down the barbed wire. Mm-hmm. That very day, a dog came and killed a sheep. So we complained to that neighbor, and he apologized, and he said he would put the barbed wire back. But he only put one strand back. And we were panicked because we have 15, 17 sheep there. So I went to the fire department, who said a wood fence is a fire ladder. Put in a metal fence. We already have neighbors that have metal fences, and these are pictures of neighbors within 2 blocks of a 6-foot chain link fence. I went to the building department. I got the building permit. He stopped me at 95%. I have the staff can testify to that, as well as the fence factory. I called. They said, we worked it out, put in some vines. I said, okay, I will irrigate it. And I called a neighbor, and she said, no, they gave me a choice of 3 vines, and she said, my neighbor said, do the trumpet vines, they do really well. Here's a long metal fence in the neighborhood with trumpet vines and no irrigation. So we put in...
That's what we're aiming for.
That's what we're aiming for. So we put in the irrigation. Oh, no. Then Roxanne called. That's fine. Do it. So we did it. And now we get another call that we have to submit this.
Do you happen to have the photographs
Yes.
1 through 8?
Yes, there they are.
Oops, I'm just going to put them in front of the TV camera if you don't
These
mind.
are photographs of within 2 blocks of the house.
Okay, those will pass around to the different people. I'm just going to go through this for the TV audience. We got a drawing down here along Siliato Lane, which is 1 through 8, and just documenting the fence. And this is from the road's perspective, not from your perspective.
It's from our neighbor, yeah.
Yeah, from standing on the
Right.
road, looking up, and here's
Right.
the fence up here and the
Yes.
fence up here.
Yes.
Okay. And most of us have visited the site, so we're familiar. Okay. And this is how it terminates at the rock outcropping
Right.
up here.
Yeah.
Okay. Great.
Now, you are familiar with the history that there were some issues in the
You
permit
know what?
process.
I'm going to ask
mistakes made.
staff, because I made an oops, because I had you guys start with your, but staff wanted to say a couple things
Oh,
before we
good.
got too far down the road.
Tony can sit with
So
you.
I oopsed.
I don't care.
Well, we can, I think the applicant summarized it, but I can answer questions if you have any.
The one point discussion is that this lot is bordered on both sides of a road, or is this a private lane? It doesn't.
It's a private road, so it is treated like a front.
So technically,
front
this
yard
property
and a
has
front
2
setback.
fronts?
Yes.
Okay. And why is the project here for this height of a fence, 6-foot high
There's
fence?
a specific design review trigger for SFDB for a fence taller than 3.5 feet in a front yard.
Okay, and does it matter how far back that 6-foot high fence is?
Well, the front yard would go way back to the
It goes
house.
into the face of the building.
Yeah.
So any fence between this road and this building is classified in the front yard?
Right.
So whether it's 5 feet or 150 feet?
Right.
I just wanted to verify that. Okay. Anything else you want to say?
No, I mean, we can respond to questions if you have.
You guys have anything else?
If I might for a moment, it's my understanding that Ms. Kirk did go to the city first to ask for the permit, and there was a misunderstanding. She was told that if she put in the fence 6 feet, that it would be approved based on this, everything was okay, that a permit wasn't required. Later, it turned out that there were some errors made in informing her that, and they called and asked her to halt and slow things down until they could get it fixed. After reviewing the project and reviewing the landscape, they said, we made an error, but we can mitigate this by putting in landscaping, which she went back again a second time and did that at her expense and put it back in.
Okay.
Shortly thereafter, a second time, she was informed that there still might be some issues. One of the neighbors was unhappy, or maybe several of the neighbors, and so now it had to go back again through the review process. Anything we can do to get this going quickly would be helpful, because she's already paid to have it done several times and paid for several permits.
And we've also, right, and we've also taken our sheet back. I mean, I did
I think we understand it. And we're aesthetic board, so I have to quietly remind
Just
people
wanted
of
to
that.
let you know that she is working hard to meet
Okay.
the aesthetics and try to please people.
Right.
Yeah. So with that, I'll close your part of the presentation and open up public comment. I've got a couple speaker slips, and if we don't mind, we usually have people sit in that chair, but you two can stay put.
I don't want to be here.
You can sit in that front row then.
Okay.
So the first speaker will be Nora McKinley. It's followed by George Davis. And if you can come to this front seat over here, and you can take that to your seat if you want. And pick your mic and speak into it.
I live at the end of Ciolito Lane.
Can I also have you say your name, because I usually butcher them.
All right, my name is Nora McMeeking, and our home is at the end of Ciolito Lane at 2047.
Is it shown on this drawing?
I'm sorry.
No. Would you be at the end, like where the cul-de-sac turnaround area is?
Yeah, but we're back. No, we're here. This piece of property.
What number is that? Okay.
I can't.
This general vicinity.
This
Okay.
map, this small map doesn't show the full extent of the lane because it goes through 2 more lots.
Okay.
But my husband and I just went through the permitting process because we did an extension to our house. And we were away when the fence project started. And when we saw the materials and the scale of the fence, I went down to the city to find out if it was permitted because it just seems so wrong for the neighborhood. It's so, it's longer than 2 football fields. And it's, that whole area is rocks and oaks and very pure pastoral and country. And so we went down to ask, and we were told when we talked to someone at the planning counter that there was some questions that we raised about the permit. And so they did send us an inspector out who put a stop to it. But mostly my objection is that it just completely changes the character of the lane. We've lived there 20-some years, and it's very quiet, rustic, natural setting, and now it looks more like a prison.
Okay.
And it's quite sad to walk along the street and drive along it.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Next one will be George Davis, followed by Brenda Tripp. And that's the last 2 speaker slips I have for this project.
My name is George Davis. I live at 1971 Salito Lane, and my house, in fact, is on that map.
Which one?
And the westernmost.
Best would be this way, right here?
Exactly.
All right.
Exactly. I think that the compatibility with the neighborhood is an absolutely major issue. Just absolutely major issue. There are some minor issues besides compatibility with the neighborhood. I brought a picture, which actually Google Earth did, which is what the property looked like when they did their drive-by. We have no objection at all that the applicant have a fence. That is not our problem. She has the right to have a fence. I think the problem lies in what has been constructed. And also, one of the things I might point out to the board is that the pictures that have been supplied by the applicant are head-on pictures of the fence and the hillside. They do not at all speak to the length of the fence. And in that regard, I'd like to submit to you some pictures that are all of different parts of the fence that show more like what the length of the fence is, 617 feet. And there. So I think that those of you on the board who have seen it, I think understand the length of the fence and the length of the shiny barbed wire, I'm sorry. Galvanized chain link fence. I also have a picture of fences from Mountain up to Salito Lane on Gibraltar. They are typical for what was in the Google Earth picture, as well as the immediate neighborhood at which we all live. And as a matter of fact, I might say that we represent in the back 100% of the people who are residents of Salito Lane.
That's not true.
We're not going there. We're just listening to him. Thank you.
And so there are also a couple of other issues I'd like to bring up. One is mature oak trees and how they are been handled in the construction of the fence. You might look at this picture, which is a mature oak tree, and at the base of the oak tree on either side are poles, are poles holding up the fence. They are obviously in the mature root system of the fence, and in discussing with the arborist, with the arborist at South Coast Botanical Garden, said it could be a problem. There's another picture of the intrusion. One other another factor I could bring up I'd like to bring up is the obstruction of natural water courses, of which there are 2 pictures in which the fence material is down to the bottom of the water course, which in a rainstorm would in fact cause a dam.
Okay.
Finally, the applicant mentioned her sheep and a need for a 6-foot fence. This is the applicant's 4-foot gate at the beginning of her property on the east side. And one final picture I'd like to put forth is a fence that was built new on the property and designed and had built by the applicant.
Okay.
And that is something that our neighbors would welcome in terms of the aesthetics of which you are entrusted with the city.
Thank you very much.
And one other comment, and that is the cost. I read your guidelines, and costs are to be discouraged in terms of discussion, and so consequently, we put it in your hands as far as aesthetics are concerned.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next one is Brenda Tripp, and there are no other speakers. Am I saying it wrong? Bruna, B-R-U-N-A?
Yeah. Basically, I just...
Oh, no, I need to have you up here by the microphone, or choose not to speak. Okay, he covered it. Thank you very much. So there's no other speakers here. Staff, are there any letters?
Yes, we got a letter from Paula Westbury.
Okay.
Not sure. I don't know if she's in support or not.
And then
She's in support of it?
I can't tell.
And then
in support of it.
you have letters as well?
I have letters in support of it, too. And I have letters in support of it from somebody who is on El Cielito, this neighbor right here.
If you don't mind, I just want to keep it...
Okay, quick.
Yeah,
But
no,
I have two from El Cielito, and I have one who's who backs up onto Cielito Lane.
Okay.
And he said, this letter is to confirm that I have no objections at all to your new fence on Cielito Lane.
Okay.
Should I read the other two? No.
I was just going to give them to staff and have staff say that they were positive or negative based
Okay.
upon what he gleaned from it. And that's...
And can I show you some
We're
of the
actually
pictures?
done with your presentation. I mean, we have some kind of formality rules. I try to follow the flow chart.
Is there no rebuttal?
At a time, we'll ask you questions, and there'll be a discussion and a dialogue. So, so the applicant gave staff 3 letters.
Let's see, we've got one from Michael Chadwick at 365 El Cielito. No objection at all to the fence on Cielito Lane. We have one from Pamela Thien.
Okay.
I'm not sure how to pronounce that. She was at 275 El Cielito. Says, I love the character of our neighborhood and do not feel that chain link fences are visually offensive or out of place in this interface of man and nature where we live. In fact, the home I bought here 20 years ago has a chain link fence, as do many of my neighbors. And from Caroline Santandrea, we own property on El Cielito Road. Although we are within the city limits, the area is quite rural with larger lots. Many homes up here are surrounded by chain link fences, and I have no objection to them.
Cool. With that, I'll close public comment. I'm sorry, you couldn't hear what he had to say?
We have a point of information.
I don't know what that means.
Well,
Why don't...
Does the board know there's a difference between Cielito Lane and El Cielito Road?
She has used El Cielito Road, which is not Cielito Lane.
Well,
Okay,
the Chadwicks.
time out.
The Chadwicks live on-
Time out.
They do too.
Okay. Thank you for listening. I think we understand what's in front of us, and we heard the comments. Most of us have visited the site, so The procedure is the board asks you questions, and then you have a chance to ask or answer, and then I will try to keep them concise. And then we'll have comments at the comment period. You don't get to talk back and forth. Then we come up with a motion, and then once the motion's been first and second, then there's a discussion about the motion in which you can bring forth some comments. So at this point, the public comment is closed. We heard what was said, and we understand what was said.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair. I would like to inform you of the environmental assessment. We completed that today. I was out last week, but I was back today. So I reviewed this with our staff environmental analyst, Michael Berman, and also Tim Downey, the urban forest superintendent in the city.
And
arborist.
Was it a positive so we can make it...
Well, Tim Downey, he didn't have concerns about the fence posts and the roots. He had concerns about where the trees were protruding through the fence, where the branches were going through holes in the fence.
Okay.
And he suggested that we have a condition on the project that an arborist report be submitted every 5 years regarding the health of the trees in the future.
Okay.
Okay.
Because the trees may try to start growing into the fence where they're contacting the fence.
Is that typical?
No.
Okay. I had to ask that question as well. So we could take action in today's meeting. Okay. It is back to the board for questions of the applicant.
Mr. Chair, I'm here at what was done so far. What was your intention? How much further are you going with this fence?
No further.
So it was going to stop right there. Isn't there a gap? It doesn't tie into anything.
I know there's a gap, but that's with one of my neighbors, and he wants to be able to get down there to go to his garbage to take. So I'm allowing him. Frank and I said, sure. That's where the stairs are, so he can walk down and put his. That's an arrangement with a neighbor.
I might interrupt. I do believe...
With the microphone.
With the microphone. I might interrupt. I do believe there is a fence that comes up at the end here.
So you're tying into that.
So it is tied over.
Okay, because otherwise I was going to say, if there's a big gap in it, that's not going to protect
Oh,
your
no,
sheep.
no.
Okay.
Excuse me, one more. And then along the, is it the north? Where's my? Yeah, northern along El Cielito Road. Do you have a fence on that side as well?
We have a stucco wall.
I see. Okay, so you're.
And we have electric gates.
Okay.
Okay. Other questions for the applicant? If there's not, we'll just jump straight to comments.
Mr. Chair, I have a question or two. It's kind of a follow-up on Denise's. I kind of wanted to go around the entire perimeter of the site to understand what sort of fencing or walls are there, what heights are there, materials are there. Because it had something to do with, there was an image shown about the gate at the drive probably, that they were only 4 feet tall or so. So I don't know who's the appropriate person, but what is the boundary of the properties?
Well, these are two neighbors here. So, because it's divided on that side. So this is where J.J. Hollister is, and we've put in a wood and metal fence.
How tall?
I'm not quite sure. 6 feet, 4 or 5. I don't know. J.J., how tall?
I'm guessing about 5 feet.
5 feet. This one, I don't want to discuss this. Do I have to discuss this with you?
You don't have to. You don't want to.
Because this one on this side is between me and my neighbor, and this is Judy, and we have barbed wire there. Are you going to make me take the barbed wire down? We put a fence here. She loves the sheep. Her grandchildren visit all the time. And we put some barbed wire and a vine over there. Everything is fine. This is a 5-foot
Masonry wall or plaster wall.
Yeah. And this has got an electric gate here, and then it goes around here, and then this is like a 6-foot wall, stucco wall.
Stucco wall.
And this is about between 5 and 6. And these walls were here. This wall burnt down. This was wood. This burnt in the tree fire, and it was replaced.
Okay. I have another question, but not to you, actually, to the landscape people. The applicant has planted some trumpet vines. I drove by. I didn't really note the spacings, but they were pretty small. Can you kind of share with us what sort of time frame it would take to cover a 6-foot chain link fence, trumpet vine-wise?
And if you think that's an appropriate vine for this location.
you want to answer first? Or? I think Tony actually emailed us about this project, and he showed us a photo. And the vine will cover probably 5-year time frame to get to what was shown in that photo.
What sort of typical spacings would you...
I mean, those vines will really climb far. I think the spacing that they were planted at is fine. It's just they were 1-gallon plants, so they're not big right now.
So,
I'm going to ask what spacing they were.
15 feet.
Questions or comments? You make comments.
I personally don't feel that the vines are sufficient to mask this fence. I think that that what's needed is it's well. Can we go on? Are we into comments here? I went up and looked at this, and it's just too close to the road. If this were set back further, I don't think you'd be getting the complaints that you're getting. And if there were some shrubs planted in front of it along the street line, along with the vines, something else that gives it some relief and it doesn't give it that flat panel look. It does look like, to me, in my eye, it looked just like a prison compound, and I thought it was incredibly inappropriate to the area.
Well, I think...
Time out. And you know what?
Please stop
Yeah.
For God's sake.
Yes. No. Yeah. No. Thank you. I guess I'll jump in with my comment, and I'll be on the opposite side of the comment in the sense that I've driven around in the past 2 weeks, and I've been looking at a lot of chain link fences, and I see what the city of Santa Barbara puts up. And the city of Santa Barbara puts up 6-foot chain link fences like this along San Roque Road on the way to Jesucita Lane or whatever it is up there, and it is like 12 inches from the paved roadway. But of course they're protecting their water and all this other kinds of stuff. It's very industrial, and this is set back. The planting is where I have a concern, and I just want to know that it's appropriate for that area because that's not my specialty. So for aesthetics, I had more of a concern of the road or the wall that was before the chain link fence, and I thought that was the issue before I opened up the email and looked at the photographs. I thought there was like a 8-foot high kind of brown or gray wall that I thought that was the issue that was going to be in front of us today instead of the chain link fence, and I found that one to be more opposing onto the wall the way because of its height and its color. The chain link fence, when I finally got to this point, yes, it was relentless, and maybe it needs some more shrubs to break up the consistency of it so it's not such a long ribbon, but I don't have a personal problem with the chain link fence.
That wall's not ours.
I know it's not yours. I know it's not yours.
Mr. Chair, my comments, I visited the site last week. I guess I'm sort of in the middle between Denise and you. I agree with the shrub comment. That's a good comment. It really needs to break up the length of the fence. The vines will cover the fence eventually. I think what I found disheartening, and probably the neighbors find disheartening, is how the fence is so new, and it has that shiny tinge to it, and it wasn't finished. I would like to propose perhaps painting it black to sort of recede into the slope, planting shrubs in front of it, like Denise said. There was parts of the fence where it meets existing fences. This is one condition, I think, that is kind of, it looks like it's a condemned house, sort of.
Can we clarify on what this photo is? Because this was before you started construction, correct? So this no longer exists?
Oh, that doesn't exist anymore?
Oh, that does exist, and if I could take that part down.
Okay, let's put this back for the
Because I don't
TV
think-
camera.
Okay.
Yeah, like, how
right
this
here.
joins with the gate is kind of
unresolved.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see how we started.
And there's other portions of the fence, and I don't think there's a photo of it, where there was this shorter wood fence behind the new fence.
Now, can I talk? Or
And I
no?
think,
Let us just go because it'll be quicker.
and I think you need to remove the old fence. That
Okay.
looks just unresolved also.
We'll get to that in a moment. Hold that thought.
So those are my comments.
Thank you. Anything else from
Chair?
Glenn?
I drove by there this afternoon just before the meeting. I was wondering if I'd be able to find it, and I found it without too much problems when I turned the corner. So it didn't feel at all in character of the rest of the neighborhood. I think a chain link solution can work, but what's there, I think from the photographs that the neighbor took, coming and just almost going through trees and having trees project through it, I think if the fence jogged a bit back, I think either Denise or Aaron talked about setting it back some, and just so it's not one plane of fence, I think would be incredibly helpful. I did drive around some of the neighborhood, and it was hard pressed for me to find a chain link fence that looked like that, because maybe the other fences were hidden but landscaping. So. At the same time, I'm very sorry kind of for what happened, because it sounded like you went through the right channels. Mm-hmm. You went and you asked about it, and you got information, and you proceeded on it. So is it the best solution? I would say no. But, I would be willing to work with a solution with chain link, but enhancing it better than what's there.
Okay. He doesn't have to speak if he doesn't want to, even though you're looking at him.
I'm actually reserving comment because I did get lost and I didn't find this fence, so I'm not saying anything.
Well, Denise.
Also, I think that one of the neighbors brought up a really valid point about the fence going all the way down through the drainage channel as well. I believe he's absolutely right. If there's any kind of flow down there, you're going to have a debris dam build up behind that, and that it does need to be held above ground there, which will defeat your purpose of protecting your sheep, unfortunately. But you can't. I just don't see a solution for you there.
Actually, but if we don't mind us battering back and forth, if you were the city of Santa Barbara and you had an area that you needed to protect for one reason or other, you could go down with like basically a cattle grate kind of solution that allows majority of the stuff versus the chain link fence, which is a tighter weave. So there is a solution in which that you can, in those gully areas, have some type of enclosure perimeter.
All right, Mr. Chair, what I'm hearing is it's a very unfortunate situation that the events happened the way they did, and in order to be sympathetic, I think, to both sides, which is what needs to happen since the fence was misguidedly built, whether it's appropriate to the neighborhood is questionable, but my thought is, what about if we think about looking at the color of the fence? It doesn't have to be black. It could maybe be green. It could maybe have more plantings put into it, maybe some bigger portions at the most bothersome parts of where the fence goes into the trees. Maybe those sections need to actually be changed and taken down, and something else might need to be put up there. But what I was wondering is if there could possibly be a little committee of okay, that may not work. Okay, forget that idea.
No,
well, maybe we could act as the committee then and create the balance and try to understand the neighbors' concerns, but also realizing the advice that you were given and that you acted on that in good faith.
If you don't mind, I'm going to follow up on what she said as a solution and how we can move forward is to sort of take the comments that were made by a couple of people and see how we can augment the existing fence that's here to aesthetically pleasing, make it look nicer for the neighborhood, but without requiring the entire thing to be removed in a moment. So it'll be a combination of some plants, maybe zigzagging it around some trees instead of going through the trees. It's a solution because the board recognizes in good faith you did go through the process, and however it happened, because from our perspective it's happened to us as well as professionals. And who is involved to make that decision, I kind of would like to look at you two. But before I guess we discuss a motion, did you want to say something about that?
I did, and Ms. Kirk is happy to plant things. She's offered to the neighbors to plant olive trees, to put avocados in front of it. If it's just shrubs, that's even easier, and if it has to do with painting some of it, we'll consider all those things. What we want to do is want to find a reasonable solution to take the existing fence and make it non-obtrusive and appeasable to the neighbors.
Can I just say something? If the arborist doesn't have any problems with the trees, I don't think I should move it. I don't think I'm so close to that. I have another picture here. You can see the drainage is below the street here of this place, and our fence is above the street. But I will fix. I'll fix anything. Okay. We've already got $15,000 in this.
Okay.
Sure.
On the board?
Well, and actually, I would like to ask if there was any possibility that you would set that fence further back away from the
If you guys pay for it, I'll do it.
That's right.
Okay. You were the ones that are put in so much money. I have to be quiet.
So with that, what would be the best way to proceed?
I think I'll try to craft a motion.
Okay.
To return in 2 weeks with the following comments. A continuance to 2 weeks with the following comments. Study painting the fence a natural color. I'll leave that open-ended. Darker colors received, though. Provide a landscape plan along Silito Lane on the public side of the fence, including shrubs, perhaps trees. Provide a solution where the fence crosses the drainage. Provide a solution where the front gate is, where the chain link fence joins with the stone columns.
Can we time out for a second? Can you be more specific on where this occurs?
In the back.
Is it here? Thank you. Okay.
Right there.
It's on the eastern part of the property. That gate. Okay.
And remove the existing fence where the new fence was constructed.
In a moment. I forgot. Okay. Is there a second to that motion?
A second.
Okay. Under discussion.
I just wanted to say we want to remove that wood fence in the back there, but there's a really bad beehive. And so we're just waiting till the bees leave or something. There's a beehive in that tree. But we will take that part of the fence down. Because I have kids that are doing it, Mm-hmm. And we will take this down.
Okay.
Can I ask one question? Can I do drought tolerant planting like agaves and stuff like that?
Okay.
Well, what do you suggest?
You have some existing lemonade berry, that would be appropriate. Some native evergreen shrubs.
I would say one of the things is when the fence is very linear, but if there can be some kind of breaking up with the massing, and that's what the green stuff can do, it's not a continuous, like the vine will eventually become a continuous hedge, but then there can be something here, whether you want to do an olive tree or lemonade bush tree or whatever. We're not really specific on how you can address it, but there's opportunities.
And we bring it back in 2 weeks.
I know what you're saying.
2 weeks. No, we're not done yet, but they understand what the motion says. Any other discussion? If not, I'll call for a vote. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. So we'll have draft minutes of what we said, like the Friday before the next meeting, but as of tomorrow, this is available online. You can listen to the audio version.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
And sorry about the hassle, but for us professionals, we get things yanked from us every once in a while, too. All right, we are on the last item, folks. apologize for being late.
No. No, I have one right
We are on to 1213 Harbor Hills Drive. Yes. Okay, folks. If you would like to step outside for 5 minutes, Denise, you can step outside and we're going to start the continue. We're on to 1213 Harbor Hills Drive. All right. This is a brand new project, so I'm going to read the project description for us. This is a proposal for a new 4,217 square foot two-story residence, a detached 627 square foot three-car garage, swimming pool, patios, and retaining walls. The 6 existing Roger Trax parcels are being proposed to be merged to create a vacant 1.1 acre site in the Hillside Design District. The total proposed grading is 1,290 cubic yards, with 486 cubic yards to be exported from the site. The proposed total floor area of 4,889 square feet is 97% of the maximum guideline FAR floor to area ratio. Staff hearing officer's approval is requested for a street frontage modification. So if I can have your names.
Hi, Jarrett Gorin from Vanguard Planning, and I represent the owners, Tony and Sharon Perpero. And we've got Mark Shields here from Design Arc, who's the architect on this. We also have Mike Goins, the civil engineer, available if we end up having any technical questions on civil stuff.
Well, why don't you familiarize us with the site and go for it.
Okay. Let's see if we got both of these on TV here. I'm going to just run through the compatibility issues, and then I'm going to let Mark handle sort of the finer points on the architectural issues. This is located up on the East Mesa. It's a south-facing hillside. This is Harbor Hills Drive right here, and this is the terminus of Harbor Hills Drive, and the project site is this whole area in here, and it includes these parcels. You probably can't see this on the screen, but it's this whole area here. It's just over an acre project site. And the entire neighborhood up there is characterized by fairly large homes. We've got a lot of large homes all the way approaching the site as you come along Harbor Hills Drive. Recently approved over here, we have the La Vista del Oceano tract, which is under construction. Some of these homes, and you can tell by the size of the footprints, these are pretty large hillside homes, 5,000 square feet, some of them. Right up above the project site, we also have a fairly large home. According to the assessor's data, this is also about a 5,000 square foot home. And basically all throughout the neighborhood, we went and, even though it's a guideline, we went and did the 20 closest homes analysis. Dan, our planner, recommended that, and it was really helpful to do this because we end up coming in on this project site with the third to smallest floor to area ratio of anything in the area. And then we also, I kind of looked at it because a lot of these homes are very large homes, but they're on much smaller lots than we've got. So I also just took a quick look at other similarly sized lots of about an acre or more. And if you look at the homes that are on those roughly acre-sized lots, we still come in within the range of sizes that are around on those lots as well. And as you go down this hill...
A little further from the mic.
I'm sorry. I got one of those voices that does that. This is a view across the project site here. And you can see the development going down the hillside, kind of very similar to what we're proposing. on this site. This is from down at the base of the hill, down off of Santa Fe Drive. Not a really heavily traveled street, but it's a good vantage point to look up at this hillside, and you can see all the homes that go along here, and our project site's right over here, and we would just basically be continuing that same pattern of development in a similar sized house.
So this dirt area right here is your project site?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah, and the home is proposed up at the very top of that site where we have the least steep slope. And then I just included a couple of other pictures along here. This is the Harbor Hills Drive right as you come up. Again, got fairly large homes. This is looking down Harbor Hills Drive as it goes down the hill. And all of these homes look out kind of over that same area that this proposed home would look out onto. And then I included a couple of pictures in this set of just the hillside up above Cliff Drive, just to give an idea of the character. And, you know, I think when we get into the environmental analysis on this, they're going to be looking at views. And I think that, first off, I'd say that it was sort of challenging to find a direct view of this property from Cliff Drive, but the places where you're able to see the view, your view is generally characterized by a lot of large homes on the hillside, and this would be adding a home to that, but certainly in character with everything else that's there.
Okay, great.
So I'm going to turn it over to Mark to go through the architecture.
Actually, if we can have those floor area ratios, I'll put them up here for a quick sec. This one is ranking by the FAR, and you're the third largest.
Correct.
So that means everybody, there's 17 or 16 that are greater than you, and you're at 0.10. This is square footage, and you're the fourth largest, so there's 3 others that are bigger than you, square footage wise. Alrighty. Mark?
All right, thank you. Good seeing you guys again. Basically, the Clinés future project or future home, we organized it to follow the contours of the land. We looked at 2 plans. One was where we kind of went more vertically down the slope, and we preferred going along with the flow of the land and the contours. So we're following the contours, which stretches the house out visually, but also doesn't stack it down the hill. So it looks less tall from someone's point of view from, say, Harbor Hills Drive below. So that was one of our main design philosophies. It also minimized a lot of the grading. We've taken the house and buried it, the ground floor rather, I think you can see best in this big section back here, if I can find it. Let's see, there we go, way down there. In this small section, you can see how we've really buried the first floor of the house with a retaining wall. So we're trying to sink it into the land, follow the contour of the slope. On the east end, the house is really buried in terms of the east elevation, as you can see in this elevation. And of course, on the north side of the property, it's barely a story. The southern elevation, I don't know if you guys are really interested in the plan. I'm going to talk about the southern elevation in a second, but first I want to kind of show you the overall floor plan. I'm going to go to the first floor. This is the ground floor. This is the portion of the project which is really buried into the hill. So this is just a big retaining wall all the way down. It's the ground floor with 2 bedrooms. We've carved out a little section of property here, so at least we can have some flat ground to a pool. All of this, of course, overlooks the mesa and has spectacular ocean views. The house, if you were to look at the topos, actually wobbles around with the flow of the topos and is broken up. The massing's broken up. That was actually a previous comment that the ABR had made, I don't know, 2 years ago or something like that. So this is the design that reflects some of that thinking. The next floor, which is actually the entry level, driveway flows around behind the house, so you'll never see the drive, down to the detached garage, which is at the end of the house, again breaking up the massing, creating a separate structure for the garage with kind of a light-looking trellis that connects the garage up to the mudroom and the kitchen. There's a stone courtyard entry, master bedroom to the east, great room in the center of the house, and kitchen to the west, with a small terrace that overlooks the view and the pool below.
Let's look at the elevations.
The southern elevation, which is seen as if you were up in a helicopter because you'll never actually see it like this, again reflects the curving of the property, following the topos again, and the different masses. So the Clonets like the idea of it being more villagey than massive in terms of large chunks of architecture. So we've taken the project and actually created different roof lines, pushed it in and out as it flows along the contours. Mediterranean in style, clay tile, barrel vault roof, sandstone retaining walls, a lot of foreground planting. And what's interesting to me, too, when I was studying the overall section, the big section, wherever that is again, is that if you're actually on Harbor Hills Drive, below the property, okay, there it is. If you were down here, if you're a person walking on Harbor Hills Drive and looked straight up the hill, because the hill is fairly steep, and you drew a line of sight, the top of the pool, which is about slightly less than 6 feet out of grade, completely clips your view of the first level of the house. So I think from really down on the mesa, looking up at the house, you won't see the impact of the 2 stories.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I've got a question for staff. Do you have any comments before we start public comment?
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Dan Gullett, Associate Planner and Case Planner for this project. Just a little background on this project. This property is part of the Rogers Tract, which was a map that was surveyed and recorded in 1929. In the 1970s, the city deemed that subdivision was an illegal subdivision. So this is 6 parcels from that 1929 subdivision. So as part of this review, there is a street frontage modification that's required from the staff hearing officer. On 2 previous occasions, the Planning Commission conceptually reviewed a subdivision that included 8 Rogers Tract parcels, including the subject 6, and also a single-family residence, just like the one we're seeing with 6 parcels. 5 of the ones we see here, plus 1 additional. The one in the bottom right was not included in that, and that configuration needed a lot area modification, which the Planning Commission wasn't supportive of. So the reported slope of the site is 45%. It's very steep. It is visible from Cliff Drive, as the applicant said. It's also visible from Shoreline Park. And as the applicant mentioned, ABR reviewed this conceptually before the Single Family Design Board was formed back in 2005, and I have minutes from that meeting. I know the footprint of the building was similar to the current footprint, but we no longer have the plan, so I don't know what the architecture looked like then.
I'll read these out loud once you're done.
The staff has some concerns with compliance with the hillside design guidelines. In particular, guidelines are related to grading for driveways and the location of the garage in relation to Harbor Hills Drive. Staff's also requesting feedback from your board on the apparent height of this building.
Can you go back up? Was staff asking us anything about the driveway access?
Not the driveway access, but the length of the driveway and where the garage is located in relation to the road.
Meaning that if these 2 things are flipped and the garage was over here, we'd have less impermeable area?
Yeah, that's
okay.
Right.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair. You know, you're no longer doing a separate formal vacant lot site concept review.
Correct.
But still, that should be the first thing that you're looking at.
Before I go through public comment, I'm going to have Glenn read the ABR meetings minutes, but this is from 2005, and so we don't know what the design was, but we can hear what their thinking was.
Okay, Mr. Chair. The motion was continued indefinitely with the following comments. Number one, the applicant has used many of the hillside design guideline techniques by digging into the hill and wrapping around the hillside with the flow of the topography. Number two, the board is concerned with the breadth and scale of the building as seen from Cliff Drive and recommends breaking up the pieces of architecture into more of a village-style scale. Number three, study the covered deck components. Number four, the board is concerned with the height of the pool retaining wall and all of the exposed retaining walls. It is understood that they be a maximum of 6 feet high and follow the natural grade. Number five, the applicant is to return with adjacent footprints and square footages of the surrounding homes. Number six, one board member suggested to study relocating the garage to the high end of the driveway. That's it.
Okay.
Can I comment on...
How about later? We'll ask you questions. Yeah. Sorry. And if you don't mind giving up your chair, perfect. Or slide that chair over there. Mark Lloyd will be the first speaker, followed by Tim Putz.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My name is Mark Lloyd, and I represent property owners that are adjacent to the property to the west, to the southwest, and to the south. And those are all separate property owners. We first of all want to let this board know that we strongly support this project. I think the architecture is stunningly beautiful. I think it really fits the hillside as Mark described. And I was present at the 2005 ABR hearings, and I think this building design here is measurably better than what that one was at that time. So it's come a long ways, and we strongly support this building of this size on this site. Where we do have some concerns, and I am speaking in support of the project, but I have not had an opportunity to really look at the plans in great detail. And so as representing adjacent property owners, our concerns are the interface between our property and this property. And two issues with just a brief review of the plans this afternoon would be the access. In the future, there is potential that there will be another home development to the west on this property over here. And the fire department requirements for access will be a 16-foot wide driveway for serving the two, and then 12 feet beyond that just to serve the one. And so our concern is that as you come from Harbor Hills Drive, the driveway is, I believe, 20 feet wide. It necks down to 12 feet in about the middle of it, and then it widens back out to 20 feet. We are not saying that this applicant should pay to build a driveway that facilitates two homes. By no means are we saying that. What we are saying is that we'd like an opportunity to talk to the applicant and their design team about how we may modify some of the designs so that in the future we don't have a lot of demolition and construction. By example, there's a 0-foot to 6-foot retaining wall across the end of the property. That is not necessary to build. You can simply take the contours and grade them back so that they sort of blend into the slope and eliminate that wall. And there are planters that are in the road right-of-way or the easement that we possess and share commonly. We don't have a problem with their planters being out there. The 40-foot easement is more than wide enough for what needs to be done here. Simply, we just need to coordinate these improvements so we have the least impact on the future.
Thank you.
Similarly, all the drainage for the property or for the improvements, roof drains, etc., is coming around the back of the property, going down this steep hillside into a new swale that comes over and discharges at the property line of one of my properties I represent. As you might be able to tell, there's a drainage course, but the discharge point is at the top of bank or away from the top of bank. So not only do we have potential erosion issues there, we may also have some issues with the improvements that may happen on this private road down below, of which, again, this would get constructed, we'd be tearing it up in order to put in the improvements we need there. So these are rather minor and simple things to take care of. If they could be coordinated with the applicant, we'd appreciate that. And again, we fully support this and encourage the board to do so.
All right.
Thank you.
Tim Putz will be followed by Jeannie M. West.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair. My name is Tim Putz, and I live at 1555 La Coronilla Lane Drive. Both Tony and Sharon have been friends for many years. Sharon's daughter and my daughter grew up together, but I've been following the project for the last few years, and just here as an individual, as a crow flies, there are probably about 200 yards from my home at the end of La Coronilla, and where Harbor Hills starts, La Coronilla dead ends. And my home is built on a hillside with the same topography as this. This was built 34 years ago almost. We're still there. We haven't washed away. And I think, for what's gone into this, the project, I believe, needs the approval of the board. Good project. And I think it's something that the whole area can benefit by.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Jeannie M. West, followed by Steve Water.
Thank you for this opportunity. I, too, am a neighbor. I live at 1187 Harbor Hills Drive. And having been somewhat significantly impacted by a remodel directly next door and a brand new house across the street, which took away city views and was enormous for the size of the lot, I wanted to be sure that a new home being constructed would not have those issues for surrounding neighbors. And although I'm 3 houses away, clearly I have vision of the hillside. I want to compliment the planners and the architect. I think they've done a very thoughtful process. The other concern that I had was we already share one swale where we currently live, and I wanted to be certain that the new property would not be connected to that current swale, which is maxed with drainage, and I am assured that that will not be an issue. So I again would like to recommend approval of this project and commend everyone involved for having been thoughtful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Steve Water, followed by Andy Chapman.
Thank you, Board. It's Steve Watson. And Watson.
Oh, that's an O. Thank you.
My bad. Speaking as one of the interior owners and part of the group having the vacant parcels to the west of the property, which was addressed by some of the concerns by Mark Lloyd. Had kind of just a prepared statement I'd like to just read through, addressed to the member of the boards. In June of 1991, the Director of Public Works prepared a memorandum addressing the difficult development issues surrounding the Rogers Tract, of which the parcels that you're considering today is a part. The memo addressed subdivision map background, remedies, the tract's history, the most apparent problems, and lastly, recommendations. Interestingly, that memo was prepared for Mayor Sheila Lodge, who today, nearly 20 years later, will be reviewing this proposed development within the Rogers Tract as a sitting member of the Planning Commission. One of the recommendations made in the memo was to avoid, quote, piecemeal, unquote, development of the tract, particularly by allowing development nearest the outside boundaries of the tract, benefiting some owners, but leaving others owning parcels in less accessible interior of the tract a less advantageous position. I speak today in support of this application, but also on behalf of such owners on the interior of the tract who, without a comprehensive plan to address all the needs of the tract, would be subject to potential exclusion of potential development on their pieces. Please consider the prudent planning process was recommended to the Rogers Tract owners back in 1991. Help to establish and implement fair policies and development procedures and guidelines which address the concerns of all the stakeholders in this difficult tract development.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our last speaker will be Andy Chapman, unless I get another speaker slip.
I'm Andy Chapman. I live at 1175 Harbor Hills Drive. And
A little closer to the mic. That's
my house, I'm just down the street from them, but from my driveway and from my house, you can see back up. So I have a view back up to where this project is. I fully support this project. It's just a weed patch now. And the drawings, from what little I've seen, fit in well with the community. It's a community of big houses. And so I don't think there are any negative impacts that I could see, and I support it.
Thank you. If there's no other speaker slips, staff, other letters?
Yes, we got an email today that I...
Dan, are you
sent along to
leaving?
you.
No, I wanted to...
Good.
Okay. This email is from Bonnie Jo Danley. We got an email earlier today that I sent along to you from Bonnie Jo Danley. She says, I think this residence would be an improvement to the neighborhood, and I'm in full support of this project being approved by the board. I feel the design aesthetics are compatible with the neighborhood and other residences in Harbor Hills. We also got a speaker slip, but this person asked, instead of speaking, if we could read his letter into the record.
You can be brief. 'Cause
Otto Engelman. Let's see. Feel that previous comments from the City Review Board citing that the plans as grandiose and out of character for the neighborhood still have not been remedied. As the proposed development is within the Hillside Design District, he believes the current plans conflict with the Conservation Elements Visual Resource Code, which seeks to prevent scarring of our hillsides by inappropriate development, which degrades our city's visual resources. And Hillside Design Guideline 29.2, which states that slopes greater than 30% should be preserved by avoiding grading and clearing. As there are building envelopes on this property which do not encroach into the 30% slope of the hillside, further study of how the lot ought to be most unobtrusively developed needs further attention. And also stormwater management plan, which does not recommend development in sites with slopes greater than 20%. The current plan sprawls across a visually significant piece of highly visible hillside. Previous review requests to minimize the visibility of driveway cuts by relocating the garage on the property seem to have been ignored. The current plan continues to be of a bulk, size, and scale as to not fit in with the neighborhood.
Thank you. Any other public comment?
Nope.
Then I'll close public comment and start with staff and see if we have any questions for staff.
Okay. Mr. Chair, I just wanted to let the board know that this will be submitted as a DART, so it will be reviewed by the fire department and engineering and the Creeks Division for stormwater management program compliance. And I also wanted to give a little update of where we are at in the Rogers Tract, so your board has an idea of what vacant parcels are left and potential development potential. So this is the survey that created the Rogers Tract back in 1929, and this is essentially where we're at today. And you see to the west of the subject property is Mr. Lloyd's project that included 6 single-family residences, and below that, as part of that project, 14 duplexes. And below that even is the Shifco project. That's 107 senior units. So the vacant properties that are left are signified by letters. These are all considered to be illegal parcels. So essentially, the slope density ordinance applies in this condition. This is an E1 zone. So the base lot area is 15,000 square feet. but since most of this land is over 30% slope, 45,000 is needed, and the Planning Commission has been fairly clear, at least with the reviews on this property, that they're not supportive of developments without the 45,000 square feet. They're
What's
not
the
supportive.
size lot of these six lots?
47,000. 46, 47.
So you're greater than the
We're
45.
greater than the 45.
Okay.
Yes, and I'm just saying that because you can see what the neighboring lots are that would be left. Members of the public mentioned issues of access, and the difficulty with the Rogers Tract is there are road easements that were granted to each of the property owners. So they hold easement to those roads, but it's a very steep site, and these are very small lots for the topography. So while they have easements, it doesn't necessarily mean that the city would allow access, because they still have to meet the fire department standards for driveway access to parcels. So, and I also have a graphic that the applicant provided previously that shows the slopes on, it's not the subject site, but it is 5 of the parcels, and the current project.
North is up still, isn't it?
Yeah.
But this is north. That's wrong.
Yeah, the north arrow is wrong on that,
Okay.
on that graphic. But in this, this one's left off, and there's one added over here in the subject proposal.
So go back, I'm sorry, the slope density, the different hatches mean different things?
Yeah, there's a key on this side.
So greater than 40, 30, 20, and less than 20. You got a little less than 20 right up there. So just to clarify staff's position, we're here for comments only, and then it's going to go through the DART review, go through all the different departments, and then it's going to come back here to the board for more comments before it goes on to the staff hearing officer, or?
If it's the will of your board, if you're not comfortable continuing it to staff hearing officer, then it would be returned to the board before the decision.
All right. Does any staff member have comments? I mean, does any board members have any questions for staff while they're here?
Just a little simple one. I'm not clear why. It's just from observing it that it's 97% of maximum guideline floor area ratio. Is that correct? Is that based on all 6 properties in that calculation?
Yes.
Okay.
Based on the size of the lot.
Based upon a 47,000 square foot lot?
That's correct.
You can only have basically a 4,500 square foot house on it, less than $5,000.
Yes, that's correct.
I wasn't on that committee.
I have a question for, what's your name?
Dan?
Dan? Yeah, I didn't quite follow the whole explanation of the illegal subdivision, and how does this project fall into that?
So we're getting into the realm of the Subdivision Map Act, and in the Map Act, there's provided remedies for illegal subdivisions, and there's multiple ways of legalizing illegal parcels. The city processed a conditional certificate of compliance for most of this property previously, and essentially what the Subdivision Map Act requires is that you meet the zoning ordinance requirements in order to clear your property and qualify for a certificate of compliance, which allows you to build on the property. Because these are illegal parcels, it is technically illegal to buy, lease, or finance these properties. So
Is it illegal to buy them?
that's correct.
Okay.
So
I was just going to say something for the board and just get the staff's okay. Really, there's a whole complexity of planning commission legalistic stuff. Should we just focus on the architecture, the location of the garage and the driveway, and then punt?
I would advise
Okay.
that you take that approach.
So
for the record, staff advises you to punt.
So we're just going to talk about the architecture. We're going to assume it's a legal lot. We're going to assume all the stuff is legal and copacetic. Now we're looking at a brand new house. And let's make some comments, and I would strongly recommend that we review it all one more time before it goes on to the staff hearing officer. But
Can we address some of the public comments before your board goes into comments? Because I think it might abbreviate things.
No.
Okay.
That's just. I want the board to focus on architecture, access, views, that kind of stuff. Someone can jump in.
We're going to do comments and questions.
Let's start with questions. Yeah, go start with questions. That's the procedure.
Okay. Did you use a reduction factor for your square footage for the built-in areas of your lower level?
Let's see. I can answer that.
Go ahead.
No, we didn't. We didn't claim any of that square footage as basement, so we're treating it the same way as any other square footage.
Okay. And then I don't know if it was the applicant or one of the staff members, they mentioned something about a buildable area, or was it a building area, development area? Is that
Building envelope?
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, I can address that as well. I think it was Mr. Watson that was talking about that. And there's no formally designated building envelopes on any of these lots or any ordinance requirements for that. He's just talking about, well, no, this was the letter that was written from Otto, I forget his last name. He's talking about other potential building areas on the lot, and I think it was pretty obvious in the graphic staff had up that the majority of the slope that is the least steep slope is at the top of the lot where this building is located. There's a tiny little area at the bottom that's also less, but I mean, if you wanted to build a 1,000 square foot house, you could do it there, but I don't think that that's a reasonable imposition on these owners.
Those are my questions.
Questions from anybody else? And if too much dead time, just go straight to comments.
Chair, I have a question. Any trees need to be removed?
Mr. Chair, no, there's no significant trees on the site at all. It's all grasses and shrubs.
Bernie? Go for it.
Thank you. Back, just one more question. So according to that little list you showed us of the, and we're just talking about the project and the architecture, but we know in the back of our mind that it's possible that maybe 5 or 6 more lots at some point might be developed. So we all have to keep in mind that this will set the precedent, and that's why I want to talk about, I think it's too big and it's too tall. I think the design is beautiful, and I'm sure it can be fit better into where it's going, but I want to show this house right, and I don't know if the camera can get it, but I know that anybody who lived here for a long time and saw how this tract used to be vacant and now it's developed and has watched it get developed, and then if you stand on Cliff Drive and look up, which everybody should be doing so we can watch how this is developing and these big houses are getting built. And this house right here, I think, which you can't really see, but it really was built way too big, and it stands out from Shoreline Park. You can see it, and I just don't want us to make that same kind of a mistake. And since this one is going to go right on the hillside here, I think it's very important that it not be too tall and it not have too many towers sticking up and it not be too expansive, because as the 4th biggest house that's going to be up there, it's going to set the precedent, and I don't think that's the direction that we still want to be able to see a little bit of natural beauty on the mesa. Thank you.
There's one really
Time out,
critical
time out. No.
clarification on that, though.
That's fine. Save it for later.
The first house isn't in the Rogers tract.
Mr. Chair, there's one more thing I wanted to mention about the developability of the Rogers tract right now. There is one legal lot immediately adjacent this property to the north that was involved in a lot line adjustment, and it's below that larger white house, so there would be an additional house between
So if we can,
this project
if you can
and-
look
and
at this
above.
site plan, here's the proposed one, and here's a lot right here. So you're saying there's a legal lot right here at this location?
That's correct, and you can see the footprint of the house above.
This is a house above that exists. So there's a potential for a home being placed here with a legal lot, and then there's this home.
That's right.
Do you happen to know the lot size of this lot? Is it in the 45,000 square foot range?
No, it's less. I believe it's 22.
Okay. Questions or applicant?
But it is a legal lot.
It is a legal lot, yes.
I have a question.
Go for it.
Is this all retaining wall right back here?
Yes, sir.
Would that be a hydrostatic problem, having it jogging like that?
No, we've done that before, and we're significant engineering takes that into account.
Okay. Does anyone want to jump into comments?
Mr. Chair, I'll take a shot at it.
Go for it.
When the drawings were first unrolled, my immediate reaction was, "Wow, that's a big house." And then I studied the drawings, and it seems like it's developed in the most reasonable way. Is at the very top, following the contours. You took note of the comments from the previous review board of breaking down the massing, so it's more a series of smaller village-like elements. And I think that's all very successful. The design is beautiful. It still feels a little tall. The central element is at least an 11-foot plate, and it seems to be vaulted. And I think that's what's adding to the massing feel of it. In addition, we have some guidelines about apparent height of how the building will be viewed from below. And, although we have 30 feet designated from a finished floor, the grading, brings it all the way down to the bottom of that retaining wall. So it's going to significantly increase the height of the visual from down below. So I think if this element here was massaged some and the massing of it could come down, I think it would be a very successful project. So the other factor that I want to just bring out is, although the site is 1.1 acres, the majority of it is totally undevelopable. And undevelopable. So this is one of the issues that we had talked about when we looked at the NPO revisions of identifying sites that maybe a lower FAR or a higher FAR may be applicable. So this is one where it's very well designed. It's in the appropriate spot. The applicant has followed all the comments that have come to him. But it's still a big house, and everybody knows it's a big house. So I think we just have to spend some time on it to make it to scale it down a little bit. But in general, it's a beautiful piece of architecture.
Thank you. Denise.
I agree with Glenn. As I look at the west elevation on page A4, where you really see how that apparent height comes into play with the 30 feet practically straight up, from finish grade. I'm trying to think something like Amalfi Coast, where it's a similar situation. It's going to get dense. It's going to get packed in. That's the way it is. It's prime real estate, Santa Barbara coastline. And anything that you can do to have that cascade more down the hill in levels and terraces would be, I think, even better. Although it's just I agree, it's a beautiful piece of architecture, and you're almost there. It's really, really close.
Thank you. Well, I'll chime in that I agree with both of them in the sense that beautiful architecture, it appears a bit on the large side. for my comfortability, there's not enough information here to move the project forward, and I'd like to see more information eventually. But site plan-wise, I'm thinking, if people talk about the apparent height, if you were to cut some sections through here, as redundant as it sounds, each one of these little village pods, then we get an understanding of what you're doing, cut and fill. And the way the height limitation is measured, it's from the lowest grade or finish grade, whichever is lower, which is to your disadvantage. And then we also want to look at when you start building the pool and the retaining wall. So it's, you did a great design, it's fabulous design. The information here that you'll need to do eventually proves to us that it's going to fit fine and it's going to be low and hunker down, and more that you can do to hunker it down, like maybe a hip roof instead of a pointed roof up there. One of the neighbors made a reference to a retaining wall back here. I was going to say come back with a larger scale grading plan here, because I didn't quite follow all of that, but that's the next pass. But at this point, personally, I would give it positive comments that you're moving in the right directions, but by no means is it a done deal, that there's a lot of things that need to get looked at and refined, but I think it's massageable. No comment?
No, that's fine.
Did you? Okay. Then we need to make a motion and move on. What is your next process as the applicant? You're doing the DART review?
We're going to go ahead and submit for DART for the staff hearing officer. So I think we've got comments from you today that I think are what they're going to want to look at. I think we'll be back here before we ever get to the end of that process there.
Let me ask staff. If people have a concern about the apparent heights and how this is working, and if people have concerns about some retaining walls and things, does that need to get flushed out before it goes to the staff hearing officer, or are there greater issues that need to get blessed before we start fine-tuning the architecture?
So this hasn't been through a DART yet, so it will be looked at by all the divisions and departments, but I think it's in the interest of all of us that it return back to the single-family design board before it's considered by staff hearing officer. I would recommend that.
Then I would like to make that part of the motion, yeah.
One of the things that we're discussing too is something that they decide there could substantially change the design, like fire department. Like we were looking at, where does the fire department go? So it could really change the driveway in.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's kind
So
of
I
tough
guess
to-
I want to say whoever's making a motion to keep it open-ended enough, but put down there that we want it to return back to us prior to staff hearing officer.
Mhm.
That this is just a blanket statement to move to the next level, which is DART review, but by no means is it you can continue. Do you want to say something?
I do.
Well, your lucky day.
If we could get, rather than an indefinite continuance, I think we could be back here within a month with, I think it's pretty obvious some of the changes and these are good suggestions, and it shouldn't be that difficult for us to accommodate those. So if we could get an actual definite date, certain continuance, that would be fantastic.
And then that would be a set of plans prior to DART?
We'll do, if we can get a date certain continuance, we will go through here before we submit into DART. And I think that would be helpful for staff then when they get the ball.
Okay. So we need a motion. And I think Mr. Glenn's writing some notes down.
I might need some help. So I'd like to make a motion for a 4-week continuance to return back to the full board with the following comments. To study the apparent height in regard to maybe providing additional sections through the building. Also, it's my motion, I can make it, to study reducing the massing of the central element on the upper level, and also to return back with a little higher level of detailing and information so that the board can review retaining walls, and what other information do we need? Is there a landscaping element that we might want to look at? down the road.
I'd like to see a color board. It's not too early for that.
Cardboard?
Concept, some color elements.
Sure.
Or a rendering of some sort, maybe.
Just a colored elevation.
So that's a motion. Is there a second for that?
I second it.
Okay, is there discussion?
Mr. Chair?
Bernie?
Thank you. Once again, we have the word study. Study the apparent height, study the reduction of massing. I mean, that's really what we're saying is reduce the massing. I mean, that's what I'd like it to say. I don't know if Glenn will agree to that or not, but I'd like the apparent height to be reduced, especially the tower, because I think that's going to be visible from the park. It's going to be sticking up there, like a...
Yeah. That's right. Yeah. Any other discussion item? I'll add one comment that in the back of my mind I'm wondering how beneficial a model would be, but just because I'm trying to understand the three-dimensional aspect of it. But I would say that prior to staff hearing officer, it's pointless. But I would say for like Bernie and whether it's story polls or it's somehow to understand the massing can be before we give it preliminary approval. Because I think it's way too premature because you got some legalistic things. But I'm looking at these elements, and I don't believe you're drawing in the, because I look at this element here, and I just go, you know what? If we had some type of a model, then we can understand that, yes, it is huge, or no, it's going to be fine the way it's all hunkered down. So I'm just making the comment in general that before we give it preliminary approval, we need to really study the massing. But at this point, it's just enough of a reduction so they can get through the staff hearing officer and their lot line adjustment stuff.
Could we get them to do one of those virtual photoshopped things? And
it's kind of expensive to do a 3D
really
thing.
expensive.
Oh,
But if we think it's necessary, I mean, that's a discussion for the board. I recommended some sections to cut through here because they have already computerized topographical map, so that should be easy to generate. But
I have a comment. I think we need to
One more go.
keep in perspective.
There's one way of, having a large house, right, but there's a way of approaching a large house. I think you're approaching it correctly and breaking it up, making it like a little village feel. So I don't feel that a big house is a bad thing. I personally don't have a problem with the tower element. I mean, if you look in Europe, they have towers, and they're really cool to see them popping up randomly. I'm not necessarily saying that's what you do here, but I'm not afraid of seeing tower elements.
The tower being the elevator?
Yeah, I guess that's what you're referring to. So that's my feeling on the matter.
okay. So we have a motion. We have a second. Any other discussion? Yes.
I always like it. There were so many positive comments about the architecture and the design. I always like it when the board adds in that we're generally happy with the design or something to remind us of the next meeting, the positive aspects as well as the negative. So
Institutional memory. That's what we're looking for. If you
Well,
feel
Mr. Glenn, you were the firster. I mean, you made the motion.
I'd be happy to add comments of positive architectural style.
Creative approach.
We'll start there. And I think the development at the upper end of the site is appropriate. The breaking up of the pieces in little villages is also a positive. And in general, a very good architectural coordination or design. So it's just a little
Thank you. All right. With that, if there's no other comment, I will call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We'll see you in 4 weeks.
Thank you.
And good night, Santa Barbara. We're going home.